John Ordenfall spent his childhood on his family's farm, just south of the Duvet Forest. His parents, Derlin and Macy, had raised him well, teaching him what he needed to know to one day take over. Financially, they did quite well for themselves, carting their crops to nearby towns and cities for sale, although the frigid weather that often surrounded their home did not make it an easy life. As is the case with most youngins living the farm life, John eventually sought to see what else the world had to offer, and so he left in search of what opportunities the neighboring city had for him. It wasn't long before he realized the city life was not his to live. The boy who left, though, had become a man, and the man had met a woman, a blacksmith's daughter by the name of Cerithia. They fell for each other quick, and before they knew it, their love blossomed into a marriage and a son. The son they named Derlin, after Jean's father. Jean eventually returned home to his parents' farm with his family, where they made a life for themselves, a new life for his wife and son, but one all too familiar to Jean. They were happy, that is, until the day vile creatures from beyond the veil made their way into their home. After being driven from his homeland by the insatiable undead that now plague it, Jean seeks out those brave enough to aid him in cleansing his land of the foul fate that befell him and his family, and exacting the vengeance he so eagerly thirsts for.
As a young child, Celeste Highcrest wouldn't have dreamed of leaving the sheltered life of luxury that she had become accustomed to. Born to two noble parents in a land beyond the veil, Celeste's childhood had been fraught with expectation. Her father, High Archivist Saran Highcrest, had set very high standards for his two children. The elder of those two elves, Celeste's sister Cressida, had surpassed all of them. Saran trained his two daughters in the art of magic and history, a respected wizard himself. Cressida had leaned into this as easy as breathing. Celeste, however, had struggled, fighting the shadow of her sister's success. She never quite met the expectations of her family, and was always the object of her father's disappointed glances. When the sisters came of age, they sat the entrance exam to join their father at the archives, to be mentored under his tutelage, and to be admitted to the sanctum of archives to scribe ancient texts and tomes. Cressida, to no one's surprise, surpassed all expectations and gained entrance. Celeste, however, held true to her long-standing tradition of always being second best, and was rejected. It was rare that one of her status should choose to leave the homeland, but never being able to escape the overshadowing of her sister, the youngest elf decided it was time to break free of her family and forge her own path. If she remained here, she would always be Cressida's sister, nothing more. But if she were to leave this place behind, perhaps she could prove herself as her own person. She found her way, eventually, to a hidden doorway, a portal to the material plane, and stepped through. She found the world familiar, yet strange. She walked, realizing now that whatever she had left, whatever power, had been left behind her. She boarded the first ship she came across, bound for the kingdom of Quell. Celeste travelled for years, traversing oceans between continents, desperate to find something worthy enough to bring home to her family as a tribute. But eventually the news reached her. When she had crossed into this world, the doorway had closed behind her, locking and leaving her stranded, with an entire universe between her and her home and family. And now, Celeste wanders and waits, desperate for answers that will lead her home again.
Drekik Yorksan, a white dragonborn who grew up in the area of Utevshal in Ogralan. My father was the Earl of Kriegsgard. The area was heavily contested by the opposing threat from Uzan Karul and the Blood Renderer. When I was 7, our village was attacked, and my mother was lost to us. My father, disappointed in my lack of strength and unable to care for me, gave me to the priests. They raised me and taught me the ways of the gods. It was here I studied the best I could, but as I stared for hours over books and scrolls, the markings could never seem to make sense. The occasional word I could read, but most were lost to me, due to this dreaded curse in my eyes, making the world seem blurred. It was only through listening and paying attention to the prayers and the ways of the priests that I was able to memorize the ways without ever needing to learn to read properly. After 8 years of service, my father returned for me, saying that it was time for me to return and defend my clan. I never liked war. The killing and bloodshed did not appeal to me as it did my father and brother. One night, I tried to make peace with the enemy by healing their wounded and sick, but I was betrayed. It was in this way that the village on the border of Iswalan was run over, and I was banished from my home to walk a path of shame for the rest of my days.
Hello. You're a cheeky looking fella. What are you up to? Ooh, I think you must be a sheep. Come join us by the fire. I got a friend here. He's a fox. Yeah. Have some of that. Oh, that looks yum. My name's Ingwe. This is my first day here. First day out here. Yeah, fox. Nice. Yeah, my tribe, we tell the stories of the world. And when we're old enough, like me, ready, I reckon, we head out into the world and go on a quest, adventure. Well, that's what I want to do. I want to do a quest or adventure. Some people just, like hang with people and listen to their stories. But I think I want to do something exciting. That's my plan anyway. But you never know what's going to happen. I mean, I've lived 300 moons, but everything's so different out here. Like, you guys can't talk. Wow, I'll figure it out. I'll figure out how to get you guys to talk to me, because this is a pretty one-sided conversation at the moment. Here, nice. It's one-sided conversation because you're a sheep and you're a fox. Anyway, so as I was saying, we head out into the world and try and find some stories and try and meet some people. Some people like you could be the people, although you're pretty quiet. You could be the people that I meet and take back, and you can hang with me and my tribe, and we can tell stories. It's about a fire, Does that sound like a good idea? No, you probably already have someone to hang with. Oh well, you're friendly enough as it is. So, the other thing we got to find is, got to get a scar. Some people have, like, emotional scars, but, you know what, I'm real keen to, like, get a cool one, like, on my shoulder, maybe, like a leg scar. Yeah, that'd be good. And then, see how we're going. The magic out here is weird. They did say that it'd be hard. Must be back home, must be the, the elders, they're pretty tight, those guys. They have to be pretty firm on the rules. So I'm pretty keen to come out here and try some different things. We're allowed to do whatever we want out here in the world, just whatever takes our fancy, and then be ready when we go home to, be all tight like the elders and follow the rules, be pretty lawful, be good, that sort of thing. Well, it's been nice chatting to you. Come closer. That's alright. Nice and safe by the fire.
We are back once again, but I am not the host today. We have a new individual sitting in the chair.
Hello, welcome all to our recap show. I'm Doc, aka, let's be a little bit out of, you see where we're going without saying any names. Not a problem. Have our own bottles to drink from at any point. We can have a drink. No inspirations for this evening, though. I'm Doc. Welcome to the recap.
This is the one where they're going to need it.
They're going to need it. You need to be anesthetized. It's going to be sad partway through. We have Discord. We talk about stuff. We play games. We chat. We do Dungeons and Dragons. Tom's the producer and normally is sitting in the DM chair. We have some tough questions for him coming up and going through. So if you have more dice than pirate paraphernalia standing at home or pieces of 8, this is the place to be.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah. How's that? Yeah? Good? All right.
Love
what
it.
are we doing? We're streaming out.
Brilliant.
Are we starting episode 50, 51?
I think 50 was a recap. 51.
50 is a
I think 50.
51 New Beginnings.
Yeah, 50 was a recap episode as well. So 51 would be the first one, I think.
First one. So start with 51. But before we do, one part of the whole idea is to go, okay, we had a little bit of a break going through. I want you guys to think about, towards the end, I'm going to ask questions on backup characters, creating characters, and how you design to come up with these ideas of your characters. Going to be a tough question, and we've got a tough question for Tom that's coming through later. So let's start with New Beginnings. What happened? What happened in New Beginnings? For my recap, a couple of words that come across: naked wife in a tube, John's free of mental problems, and there was a lot of reading. I think there was things that were happening in that episode. So. I didn't catch into all of them, so a lot of you are going to have to take it away, and I'll throw in questions as we need to. Who are we starting with first? Setting this one, probably John.
I feel like this should be a Shirok.
This is a Shirok.
Shirok one. Yeah.
Perfect, because the first thing on my recap literally just says, "What happened?" So, Jean was also confused. Yeah, I believe. What have I got here? Delatuna's. So from what I've got here, this was basically the aftermath of the crazy shit that happened the session prior, where we were dealing with Jean going in and having the whole thing removed from his head and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I've got here the notes. I believe we came to the conclusion that Delatuna's did not break up the Dreamweaver. And in fact, it was used and used his newfound power to gain more control over the city of Kronos, which there were these sort of like figures dressed in red robes that were all around. And slowly throughout this episode, I believe we started suspecting that they might have been his clones or something, like to some effect, because they all started, like the few that we saw look like him as well.
Yeah.
Or at least the few unmasked that we saw. Let's see. We found a letter on the table that was targeted to Mana, speaking on how she should take his place, and then an apology to VK Incorporated regarding how the ends will justify the means regarding everything that's going on. And there was also a gift of Cloak of Embers, and I have here 6 greater healing potions. Which I'm assuming is mixed around somewhere because Sean doesn't have them.
I think they were spread out. I think they did that.
They maybe popped into Celeste's bag. I think Celeste put them into her bag at some point.
Oh, so they
We'll find out later.
Yeah.
We'll find out later.
They're still back in the inn.
Out of sight, out of mind. So Jean told his family pretty much about everything that happened. There was a bit of chaos. We heard, we jumped out into the street. We spoke to Mana, I believe, and all sorts of things of that nature. Let's see. We went back to Ingwe's place to speak with my family, in which Celeste walked away mid-conversation for something. Drekik crashed on the couch. Ingwe crashed in with Vartex. In Derlin's room, set up the doorway, and then as Celeste was falling off, she heard voices from a figure named Heldar, commanding an attack while someone opposed them. She awoke to find the room flooded with seawater, no room for air. Seaweed grabs her leg and keeps her in place, runs up the stairs to see Rin stabbed by Heldar, of which, not knowing these characters properly, Heldar a bit of an idea. This is all, pure Celeste.
She casts Healing Word only for it to happen again. Rin getting stabbed again and again and again. Scorching Ray was blasted onto the mast. Wild Magic surged, and where was it? Her own voice said back, "No rest for the wicked indeed." Ingwe pops out of the room while Derlin and his girlfriend were wrestling. Yeah, Ingwe and Drekik slip out early in the morning
Fade
for
to
a
black.
walk. Yeah, exactly. Drekik leaves to pray and asks if Ram knows where the God Hammer is. An old man appears unsure. He recommends doing research. After a brief chat with Danica, the gang heads to the archives. Celeste finds an entry on the God Hammer, after which spoke something about after Lolth returned to where she came from. Something that I missed, except for one, just in case. God Hammer. The hammer was left behind. Sorry?
She destroyed her books except for one.
There you go. That's what I missed. I'll add that after. The hammer was left behind either by accident or as part of a cunning plan. Found its way to a farmer who used it as an ordinary hammer until a god told them what it truly was. It was then handed down the family till eventually it was passed to, I'm going to screw this name up, Yaroslav Lightbringer. That continued down till Thorman Lightbringer. Thorman, okay. Vikander Lightbringer is very prevalent to Drekik's culture, we also learned. After learning about Itna and its connection, Jean pointed out that he knew where Itna was, and that it was where his wife was originally from. And we also found out, I don't remember what this directly correlates to, but 12 days till we freeze to death. Winter solstice. So my guess is that wasn't literal, just meaning that 12 days away from the winter solstice. This is the bad side to making jokes and notes. And it was,
ironically, it was the hottest time. It was the hottest time at home in the real world at that point.
Yeah.
It was like 35, 36, yes.
It was 11 days till moonfall as well. And Mana was introduced to John's family before where they left, so that way they had another connection within the city. And suddenly everyone's arms started burning like crazy as the tattoo grew. And John and Drekik saw a vision once more on a boat with blurry faces, where they were told, "It's time, my son, let's go wreak havoc." Then lightning struck the water and reveals an icy island. That's all I got.
You leveled up.
I say that's all you got, but that was very good.
That was pretty good. That was like a half, three words or something, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Naked wife.
it's pretty good.
Naked wife in a tube and a lot of tube. That was a good recap.
Yeah, thank you.
A quick question, because a lot of that was involved with John's background there. So, did you flesh that out yourself, Cherok, or did you just feed an idea to Tom and DM just
not yet? So
just throw it across.
a lot of Jean's story has to do with him at his home. Everything that happens outside of that doesn't correlate to simple life, so to speak, with simple life and the undead is all, everything outside of that is all Tom. So excellent. All the craziness, the wildness, and that's been happening around that is 100% on Tom's end. John's just been riding the motions, trying to figure out how it all correlates and whatnot. So yeah, It has been a wild ride, an enjoyable ride, and I'm keen to see where it's taken next. Because I was straight up expecting it to just be, hey, let's go fight some zombies. Sean's story over. All right, next one.
Wow. We'll see.
And Tom, question to you, Tom, like coming across that, you've got this great idea of linking characters and their backstories into it, or do you pre-plan that, or sometimes that's a path and just run with it and let the cast just go off?
Yes, I have to plan a lot. If you're trying to tie something together like a Quentin Tarantino movie, like sometimes you have to do a lot of planning. But I let everyone write their own characters, and then I might change little things here and there in the backstory and let them know, hey, what if you had a brother named this who used to work for the army or something like that, and they're like, oh yeah, and then talk about all these other things that's not important, and then 5 episodes in, they're like, oh fuck. But it does take a lot of red lines on the wall to kind of map it out. Also, especially when some of the characters' stories are linked together as well, that becomes complicated. Especially if there's any timelines involved, that becomes tricky. But yeah.
No, sounds great. Is there anything else to add into that episode? That was a really dang good recap. Huh?
You leveled up,
Yeah.
and Mana got
That's
elected
nice.
as high senses at the end of that episode.
Oh, that's right. We got powerful allies now.
Yes.
Go, Nana.
Oh, right. Yes. Yes.
All right. And that moved us off into episode 52. Is that the one called Cold Facts? I've got my names in. Is that what I'm looking at? Cold Facts? No?
I have it as cold facts, but I think we might have jumbled up the names a little bit. But let's
Let's
just go
just
with that.
roll with it. Sure.
Let's roll with it. It doesn't matter. Welcome to the world of monsters and mayhem.
Yep.
Insert confusion here. Who wants to take away what happened in this one? I didn't have a lot of notes. I had stuff happen. No, journey to show ward, boats, flying on an eagle. So on this one, met some penguin, met some penguin thieves.
That's the next one. I actually
Alright.
have this as I actually in my notes have this as episode, and then I didn't get the name, but the title in my notes is "List of Things to Do."
Yeah, I've got. My notes is literally
That-
just like a list.
That will
of
be
things
the
to
next.
do.
That will be the next episode name. List of things to do.
Fantastic. So someone has some notes there. Ingrid, do you want to take
Alright.
that away for us? Or Celeste?
Yeah, we'll do mine first because I think Laura's will be more comprehensive. Stopping the apocalypse, going to Etna, in brackets. My mother on the fireplane. His father hired Klaus to kill his mother. Destroy the tattoo book. Celeste gets home. Bartex gets home. Escort someone to La Guerra. Drekic's sister in Krakow. Gets Cerithia's life back. And starting a crusade in bold.
That was
Small
like
plans. Small plans. Yeah.
300 years of actual history.
England's really keen to start that crusade, and I think I get the impression that that's like a plot point that's not going to come back. But like, I'm
That's
pretty
up to
keen
you.
to like.
That's up to you.
Anyway,
Because you
England's
do have
definitely keen to go back there.
you did have hints of that you needed to go back, so maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. What else do we have in that one? Celeste?
All right. So mine is very. So my notes are very like dot points usually. So I've got here the spiral staircase where Celeste slept, and then I have the list. Cerithia resurrection, stopping the apocalypse, buy supplies, destroy the city of the undead, go to Crackbone to visit Drekic's sister, rescue Ingwe's mother from the fireplane, go home, La Guerra Esperanza, Cillian invitation after werewolf attack, remove Drekic's curse. So that's my list of things to do. And then I've got Cillian is unwanted at the ball. He's affiliated with the underworld. He worked with John's brother-in-law. Crackvolm is the lion's den. I've got that writing. And then I have Amir at the potion shop, in brackets, ask for discount the next time you're there, Kronos. He said, next time you're here, ask me for a discount. So I wrote that in my notes, so I remember. Then I've got Kina, the drow woman at the Flux. I purchased a pearl earring to use as an arcane focus. There is a hidden room in Midos and Danica's house. And I cannot read my own writing. Atticus Trading Company bought the properties in secret office. So those are my notes from that episode.
Yeah.
So that must have been the episode where we sat down like, okay, what are we doing? Worked out a list of things we want to do, went to go buy some supplies, and then went back to Danica and Midos' house to just have a look around before we were then on our way to go to Itna.
Yes. You also bought a gun.
I did. I bought my magical gun.
Yes.
We ticked one of the things off the list.
Buy supplies.
No, and cured Drekic's curse.
I mean, technically,
He's not a zombie.
Anymore. He was momentarily.
Yeah.
theoretically, he was burned, so it's gone, but it was still active.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Ooh, foreshadowing. No foreshadowing. No foreshadowing.
Yeah, maybe it was temporary.
Well,
That's gonna get a checkup.
Also, as a note as well, I have here the title for the one that I misnamed for the next episode, which was Echoes of Silence.
oh, there you
There
go.
you go.
Oh, Echoes of Silence. Ooh, cool.
The only other thing I had from that episode that you guys didn't mention was that while Celeste was out doing something, the boys had a drunken "I love you, man" moment where we all got smashed at a bar.
That's right, you
Uh,
guys. I remember that.
Yeah.
You guys fell asleep outside the bathroom.
Yep.
Oh, I remember that.
Yep.
Cute.
Yeah, it was a
And you
it was
drew
a, it was a
mustache on
broman.
Ingwe's face.
Rings around Ingway's eyes and a curly
it.
mustache and goatee.
That doesn't happen in real life. That was not life imitating art. That was art
Yeah, yeah.
that could imitate life at some point. Yes.
That's it. Oh, and that was the session where the board game was played. Because I've got here, John gets into board games. Before I knew the name of it, I called it Mon Not Oli.
I think this was the one where you were explained the rules and tried to play it the first time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Danica left, and Danica was like, "Here, just
Yes.
take my place for a second." And you were like, "No,
Yeah,
I'm good."
yeah.
And then she came
Yeah.
back, and you're like, "No, let me finish." So you're going,
I'm into this shit now.
yeah.
Another curse.
Yep.
How like board games to take over your life.
Yeah, which is funny because he was also the Satanic Panic guy when they found those guys playing.
True.
Yes.
When you
yes,
find
yes,
it. Mazes and Hydra.
yes.
I don't know. Oh boy.
Did we miss it? Did we miss anything, DM Tom? Did we miss anything? Do you think that your notes you had across there? Anything?
None other than Celeste buys a gun, and Sean plays the one who owns all the first time, I think. And they were trying to head towards Itna from that point, I think. That's kind
Yes.
of everything else
That's
has
right.
pretty much been mentioned, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
pretty good.
At the end of this episode, we had like a big plan to like just fly there and not go in a car or anything. Like I remember like ending it up because the first note of the next episode is like bailing on that plan.
There you go.
But the plan was like you know how we were doing the like hopping with the late in this episode we were like is that possible? Could we just like fly there and skip everything that Tom had planned?
So
Yes, I have no
theoretically, you
self-control.
could, if you could get all four of you to fly. But that's the problem, I think. Also, the weather itself is not really that good for flying at the moment. So
Well, starting to get pretty cold and coming across. So we move into the next episode, guys. I think that one's the one called Cold Facts. That's what I've got written down here. Then is it yes?
that was
that
the Echoes of Silence, I think.
Echoes of
Yeah.
Silence. Is it written? Okay, Echoes of Silence.
I can't
What-
spell
what
that,
are we
but
doing
yeah.
here?
Yep, so that's the one that is on YouTube called The Road East for no particular reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
Histories.
So what did we
It's
do?
a
What did we
puzzle.
do in this?
Well, Jean got up to a lot this
So
episode.
much.
Yeah.
So much.
He kept playing the games and considering how to make his own rules, I think, and speaking
He
to
did
Dragon.
describe this Drekic in designing the rules. One who owns all the property board game. Yes.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
Just
License
a
pending.
I
short,
was actually there, but
shorter
you know.
way of saying it, yeah.
What's going through? So there's a lot of traveling in this episode going through, and people are doing stuff. How do you guys like, Tom? Do you plan that, or do you actually let the characters just interact and let your cast just describe and take it on until you go? You know what? We need to wrap up and go to the next step. Do you?
I just let them
Plan a
do whatever they want at any given time, pretty much, and then if anything is pressing because of various situations, I will impose it on them when they least expect it.
There seems to be a lot of mischievous stuff going through. I think that if anything was going wrong, Drekic seems to throw something in the mix, or Ingwe seems to go off and do something that's just
Yeah, I think
absolutely so amazing.
Yeah, I think everyone who is the cast here. I think everyone's really good at if they feel like pace is going in a weird way or something to make something happen. Have a conversation that's really intense or deep, or do something stupid like steal a bottle of wine or something like that and burn down half a village. Start a fight with someone and then get called by the Magistrate's Court afterwards. You know, like
They're the good guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point to like for viewers to realize that you're playing a game where you're co-creating. So like in this episode, I think like there was a lot of internet issues and there was a lot of like stuff going on. So then it's like, oh well, how do we keep it going so it's not, oh, why are we wait? You know, like it might be this person. So Celeste and I can go for a fly and be amazed, and then spend a lot of time describing that flight, which is a really cool concept. But also, like, if there was something else happening, then you can kind of skip those things and hold on to. Like, I tend to hold on to a lot of those kind of ideas where I'm like, oh, this would be really cool to actually experience this thing. But it could, like, there's those little things that are like you can like plop them away and bring them out at different times.
Yeah, definitely. I do agree that it's the journey, particularly in the D&D game when you're doing the role play, the journey becomes far more fun and the characters become more lively. And you actually get, you know, I actually have to remember your names besides Tom, who's DM Tom coming up there. I actually look at you guys and I see Jean and I see Ingwe and I see Celeste. And later on, we look at, you know, Daniel, we're coming across, going, yes, who do I see there? We'll talk about that later. It's Drekik at the moment, but, you know, and I actually see those characters when I talk to you guys, and it looks like it's an organic conversation, and it seems to be what you would talk about on the trip. And you can use some of the cool abilities. You have to use some of the cool abilities that the characters have outside of combat, because it's not just combat, although dice rolling is a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I think it's very important that as a game master that you don't interrupt your players when they're role playing. If they keep role playing cooking for 4 hours, then of course maybe it gets a little boring. But if they're having actual conversations, getting to know each other and stuff, that's what the whole role playing part is about. And if I want to throw a media on them, I'll just wait a little bit.
And do you take notes through that, Tom, to help you out for your story planning for future on? You're listening to it when they're actually going into their big conversation? Yeah.
Sometimes. There's been a few times where I've been noting down names that people have thrown out as jokes and stuff like that. That kind of stuff. And maybe it'll be relevant, maybe it won't be, but definitely.
One interesting thing that did happen in this, because I've got a couple of notes about this episode. So the first one is, on the wings of an eagle, Celeste finds herself lifted to the sky. So there was that song playing in my head when they were having that A Whole New World
Celeste
moment.
the eagle.
Yep. So we were traveling northeast towards Itna from Kingshelm. We found a penguin with big eyes stealing and eating our magical stuff. We found Halfnir's magical seer, and we got readings. We went to the butt-naked mermaid. Black Hollow, which is where the seer was traveling to. And then Celeste drew the star. So the path we're on is correct and will lead us to our desired outcome. Which I think, looking back on that, bullshit.
I mean, it didn't say that it was your desired outcome. It said it might not be your desired outcome.
Oh, might not be the desired outcome. There we go.
So theoretically, yes and no in the same sentence there. And that's important because that actually did happen. It had changed everything suddenly.
Yeah. So Ingwe discovered a fiend in the forest that had a cat. We came across Maddie's moon pies, who was a fiendish grandmother who was baking pies in the middle of the forest. And we found an inn on the other side of the forest called the Bare Naked Mudman. So there was the butt naked mermaid and then the bare naked mudman.
I had it written down as the half naked mermaid and the bare naked mudman.
They were butt naked.
Either way,
butt naked.
The mermaid's not wearing many clothes.
Not many clothes, yeah.
Either way you look at it.
Do a mermaid really have a butt if she has a tail?
They ingest, they eat. There has to be some sort of ablutions going on.
Philosophical questions.
There has to be some. Welcome to D&D Monsters and Mayhem, guys. Tuning in, Biology 101.
Discussing the anatomy of mermaids.
Oh boy.
You're going through the Cursed Vale, is that right? We are in the Cursed Vale?
Yeah, that's where Maddie's moon pies were.
Yeah.
Trying to just run a shop, but these people keep interrupting her. Especially Mr. Brendan Drekik.
Mr. Drekik, yeah. And was there some issues about people not wanting to go into the shop at some point? Is that right? She wasn't allowed to come out the magic circle or something?
Yeah, I think someone dropped a magic circle so she couldn't leave the house.
But she went through a wall or something that was...
She took the wall off.
took the wall off. Okay.
Yeah,
One of
because
those,
Jean and Celeste, this might be news to you, I'm sure, but Jean and Celeste got out of the cart upon approaching the fiend. We didn't know what it was at the time. And then Ingwe and Drekik went up past the house, talking loudly and things, while Jean and Celeste kind of broke off to the side and were kind of being a little bit stealthy. And then Ingwe and Drekik had a great conversation with Maddie. And her moon pies, and Drekik trapped her inside of her house and then told her to come out. So then she burst her way through the side of her house to come around to them to give them the pies.
I think he commanded her as well to go out. I think that's what happened. He commanded her to leave the house after doing that. So the only way out was through the wall.
Yep. And then it turned out that the pies were actually, they weren't cursed, but they were like magical. And basically what they did was they gave you a massive sugar rush, and then you just like crashed.
Yes. Pretty
Ice
much.
potion, basically.
She's just
Very
trying to be
scary old
a
lady.
little old lady selling candy and sweets, and
Yep.
got hustled by two young men.
I love the penguin thieves in this one. The magical little penguins that decided to eat all your healing. But that's where your healing potions went to. They took your healing potions.
One of them got eaten, and I think that they lost something else as well. I think Drekik lost some of his magical amulets or something, not actual magical items, but just like kind of enchanted stuff. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where they went, but I think they still had the majority of the healing potions at that point, except for one.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that was a cool way, a good introduction of a great new concept beast there, DM. It was a little bit on the challenging side, with a little bit sad, cute little penguins, deciding to remove some of the healing potions. I love that idea. I think it was great.
Yeah, interesting. I actually wrote the creature for a D&D challenge a while back. There was like an official create your own D&D monster kind of thing, and I wrote that kind of thing for it. Obviously, it's not really a monster. They're sweet little things that steal your shit, but yeah, just a while back.
For a party with limited healing options coming up, healing potions are quite important to go across.
Yeah.
You don't need healing in this game.
Yeah. There was a little bit of scariness of that nice little village. It sounded a lot like Salem. Is that correct? Was it Salon?
Ceylon.
Worried about it? Ceylon?
Yeah, I didn't think about it at the time, but I guess having a village right next to a cursed vale called Ceylon might be close. But yeah.
Although I heard it as Salon, and I'm pretty sure that's where Maddie took her moon pies and got her hair done, as most hags tend to do.
Yeah. It's a good place for haggling.
The butt naked mermaid. That'd be a great place. All right. Any other notes for this one, guys? Any other notes coming in this one?
Nope, that was all mine.
No, I don't think I have any more.
Oh, I've got lots of pictures of like little temples that I've made and remade and remade and remade.
No, that's right.
Sure.
You're setting them up along the way.
Yeah.
That's right. Setting up our long game for the Crusades, I think. There. Yes.
He's like Google Earth. He just drops a house every now and then.
All part of the plan of Ingwe. He seems nice and sweet and innocent. Yes.
And suddenly he's building towers of doom everywhere.
Yeah. All right. So that was that episode 52, 53, 54. What name do we have here? Sucker's Punch. Is that the one?
Sucker Punch.
Sucker Punch.
Yeah.
All right. This one is locked out on. I had a couple of things. I have traveling, and I can't read my writing, so I'm not sure what I wrote down and jotted down. Who wants to take over? Doc's getting older and need a swig of the old, Not that we're sponsor plugging, but this was coming from our lovely, fantastic friends. Where do we get a mini from? Miniporium. Miniporium.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
like a commercial right there.
Right.
Pops up every now and then.
Yeah, very good.
Timing.
Timing.
Yeah.
So what happened in this episode, guys? Who wants to take it away? Yeah.
I can give it a crack. It's surprisingly not a very fleshed out set of notes from me, but I'm happy to try.
Do it.
what do we got? We got Sucker Punch. Here we go. So, Celeste informed Jean that she had given Derlin some silvered weapons in case he were to counter the werewolf. I don't recall why exactly, but I remember exactly what happened afterwards. This was the episode where Jean punched trees. And I don't remember why that initiated, but Jean was punching trees. And
that's exactly why he was punching trees, because he figured out why Derlin followed us to Kingshelm. That's why he was punching trees.
Yeah, there you go. That makes sense. Yep. Yeah, that because I figured it out earlier. Sean did not. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Yeah. What else was there? Jean also started trying to get a better understanding of the book that Draki had given him, trying to get a better understanding of the gods and the Stormlord and the belief system and all that sort of thing, as well as looking over the rule book of that board game. Ingwe and Celeste flew ahead after Jean tries to steer the horse that Draki got drunk the night prior.
Reynold got a little drunk.
Yep.
It says drunk horse. There you go. That's what it says. Yep. Good, yeah.
It's just a flat tire. Right. It is just a flat tire, my friend.
We had a hell of a snowstorm start to come up, and Celeste started appearing unwell and went to bed early. Ingwe and Drakik head off to investigate a figure on the mountains that Drakik spotted. The figure was casting some sort of ritual spell, eyes glowing, but spotted the two of them as they approached and cast a necrotic vine-like spell at them before disappearing. Back at the camp, Jean and Celeste have a chat before heading out to check the wagon and black vines and the black vines that were now surrounding it, appearing as though someone had gone through their things as well. Then I believe we went in to speak to Vartex to see if Vartex sort of recognized anything about these black vines and if there was any similarities to some of the suspected origins we thought it was. And they mentioned that it was, where was it? I put specifically Coven, the Furbolg druid, is mentioned by Vartex when shown the ash, reminding him of the dark vines. We eventually made it to the Silver Shores, little fishing village, and we went to the Rondia Inn, I believe it was. We got ourselves some meads, which cost us 10 gold pieces for 3 meads. Yeah. Before we realized that it was all part of the early, you guys visitors type treatment. And finally, that ended up in, I believe that was where the fight started,
Yes.
where Jean was eager to get in a ring when Celeste was trying to talk them down to their prices. I was like, all right, if you fight one of ours. And Jean got up cracking his knuckles. And yeah, then a fight began, and partway through that fight is where the session ended.
Yes.
That's what I got.
I love how you say that. Oh, my notes are very fleshed out. Way more than what I had. Like the only thing that I have written down was that Ingwe talks to grass and stuff.
I have Ingwe builds real estate.
I had traveling drunk horse and fight. That's traveling drunk horse and fight.
See, now it starts to sound like D&D.
Actually, to add to the story of Colvin was that Bartek said that he was his employer before he came over. I think that's an important note.
Yeah.
That he was the person that was. Yeah.
He was the person that he was working for up until the point where he flipped around and gave you the dream mirror.
Yeah.
So pro tip, viewers there, take notes multiple times, have chats. It really does help you actually remember what's going on. And it helps the DM out as well. Just for DMs there, don't always think you have to take all the notes. Players can really, really throw in stuff. And the yes and as a DM, I think Tom, you'd have to agree, the yes and is just amazing. You just have to take what the players throw at you sometimes.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I didn't have a good example is when we're going back to the wine again. Someone breaks in, steals some wine, puts a bonfire in a house, half the village burns down, gets in a fight, summons a wolf, and Sean gets in trouble for
Yeah, what the fuck?
That's right. We always know that it's if it's not Drekik, it's John. You know, we know that. We've always known that. We've always
That's
had
right.
that blaming in that area going through.
It's never Ingwe.
It's never Ingwe.
Ingwe has never started anything. Never anything. What's one question to you, Ingwe? You all the way through, you've always had your characters, no matter where we have them. We'll talk about coming up later on. Mr. John, Miss Celeste. Yet everyone else, you just use their names. It's just your characters, your group, Mr. Drekik, Mr. Tam beforehand. You always use that Mr. for your group, but for other people, you just use their names. Is that something that you consciously chose to do?
Yeah, definitely. It's quite hard to. So, like, the concept is someone that is more like Ingwe thinks he's much smarter than his companions, but also comes from a culture of respect. So it's like he knows, using that language is respectful language, even though I'm saying disrespectful things, or even though I'm talking to them like they're an idiot. If I call them someone that's a higher caste than me, maybe that Japanese concept of like different languages. Like if I use the different language that shows they're higher than me, then I can continue to call them idiots.
It's actually quite good. Like it seems to come on very, very well. And as you play the character for a while, it's really obvious for people when they first flick in or you flick in everything, and you know how the story's going that way. So I find it
hard though in my other, like I find it hard to switch off when I play like other characters. No, not that one.
Yes. That'll be a question I come up later on. Anything else for that one, for Sucker's Punch? Is there anything else we got coming through? No. There was one note I had coming back beforehand. It was really, really well done, I thought, Tom. You described the aurora. So the colder started coming in, and there was like when they were traveling, you start describing the scenery, which actually makes it for viewers like we can sit there and watch, not like watching a movie, but like we're traveling along with the cast. So I think that's a really important thing for viewers to watch if they're budding DMs to come across and think about. Just describe that. Take a little bit extra time because it allows the players to get that thought along and just go, what would I do in this situation when I'm driving across the tundra and there's an aurora going across? How would I do that?
Yeah,
I
sometimes.
also find it really. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go on.
I was gonna say I find it really helpful as well as a player because I've been in campaigns and things like that before where it's very much like all right, you guys travel here. It'll take you 5 days and then you get there. But like having the transition, I find is really helpful as well. Like going from like a bustling city and then out into the tundra, just like even Tom just explaining the vastness of it and the aurora and the snowstorms and that sort of stuff as well. Until we get to a place that's frigid, rather than just going from like bustling city up in the sky to in the tundra overnight. So I find that it's really good. Just
I think
mind.
I come from a perspective where I do sometimes write some scripts and stuff for like TV shows and stuff, and you usually have to put in like the details of where something is before you tell what's going on, and I feel like this really helps set the environment and the emotions in an area before you move into it. Because if I start saying, there's a thunder, and then you start moving into it, and then I start explaining some of the things that you didn't picture was there, then it gets a little jolty. But I think
your music choices actually help you. The music transitions do tend to help with that quite a fair bit, Tom. So you do a really good job on that as a DM. You actually have transitioning the music. So you go to the bustling city background noise, and then you come into the different side. It actually does help, and you can see it as a viewer that the players tend to spend that time when you're in the bustling part. They're in that intense mode, and then they just relax that fraction. And I think that's a really good way of telling the story. So it's, from our point of view as viewers, I think it's really well.
That part's also they can hear it now, but to begin with, when we started, you couldn't hear that part. It was only for me and the people who were watching. But now they can hear the music, but they can hear the all the environmental sounds and I do voice changes and stuff like that as well. So,
you're going to say something?
Yeah.
Just that same thing that when we first started, we couldn't hear it, and it has made a real big difference to like adding that extra, like even rewatching back was like, this had a different vibe when I experienced it, watching it back, and then now we're hearing it real time, and it's like, it really helps to get in the vibe when you can do those little. It's quite easy though, Tom? Is it like not to set up all the way, but is it there's not a lot of prep? Are you just like choosing from a playlist or something, or?
So there's two things going on. There's music, and then there's the environmental sounds. And the environmental sounds that you're listening to pretty much goes on repeat. And I pick from my options. I don't currently have a subscription, but I'll get one. So I only have a few ones, and some of them aren't perfect for what I want. The ones that are really good is like a bustling market. That sound's been used quite a lot because that also works for an inn. And then the storm, if you're outside in the environment, or if you're on a ship, or if you're high up in the air, all three of those would be relevant for that. So I do prep it a little bit in the sense that I have to pick one of them every time and see which one is the best. And sometimes you can disable different sounds to make it sound closer, and I do that too. Or sometimes I will click a button and there will be another wolf howl and stuff like that because of reasons, maybe. And then the music itself is generally going on a playlist, but I do change it from time to time depending on the situation you're in. Because even with the playlist that we have and we use, a lot of the music are similar, but some of them are very different. Like I have Viking music in there now, for instance, for when you went to Itna. So there's a bit of prep, but it's not something I have to necessarily do every time.
And for those people out there, if you pop onto our Discord, we actually have some of those playlists up there. We definitely have them on Spotify. Thank you for Tom for sharing those, because that really does, again, allow us to play that music and get what's going on, and a lot of work exists for free going through. All right.
There you go.
Plug everything. That's what I've got to do. Plug everything. Okay. Cool. So that was Sucker Punch, and we now move on to Frostbite. The next few I had some internet issues down here, and I know that I watched some of them in different timing. So I'm gonna let you guys actually take over of how these went again, because I don't have a lot of notes in this one, so I haven't had time to go back and review them all. So Frostbite, what are we looking? Obviously, we're cold. Obviously, we don't have a drunk horse. I had that down previous lessons. So what are we doing in this one? What's happening in Frostbite?
Well, we're continuing the fight with Sean. When he finally starts fighting the Loxodon, and Sean wins.
Somehow.
I know. The elephant in the room wasn't the Loxodon. It was Sean winning.
Yeah, but it helped them out because they got some discounts, and they also found out that maybe this individual wasn't quite so random. He actually had kept an eye on them for a while, and he was working for the Fangmaster, who they had been introduced to unknowingly, at least in the sense of a bird mentioning it. Mm-hmm. But none of them spoke Loxodon at the time, so they didn't know. He offered his help with a boat, and they all had to offer help with the Fangmaster, maybe going and helping in the very far north against the rebellion and the guerrilla warfare that they were doing there. And to find a white dragon which had been kidnapped by the orcs and force-fed things to make it speed up its growth. They had seen the cage, but they did not see the dragon when they were there, and that's where Sean actually lost his arm. No, he lost his arm there. Mm-hmm. And that's when we found out a few things in that specific episode. And eventually you end up going onto the sea and find out something is gnawing on the ship. And then eventually get attacked by a large purple shark.
It's easy stuff.
That's what I had, at least.
Sorry.
I was just saying, yep, in agreement.
Yep.
So I said, talking about the Fangmaster and things like that, that there's a resistance in Ogralan who's fighting against the blood. And then I had Guy, and then I crossed that out and then wrote Renderer. Because, yeah, he's again. The blood guy.
And it's a female.
Guy's a generic term. We don't descript it yet. We haven't
yeah. And then I also said that there's Marlan Oathbringer, who is the current queen of Itna, and that there's a bonfire for us to aim the ship for at Sheltalan, which is where we were heading to. Sheltalan. And then I said as well about Jean's family, how that his father-in-law Torgia was there as well. And then this is where I think Drekik was asking about something
You didn't
No.
quite arrive yet, though.
No.
No, we're not in there. So I think Drekik was talking to, because I've got the note here that says the Church of Old will guide you, but you may not find what you seek. So I think Drekik was, or someone was asking a question. I don't
Did
have the quote written
Yes,
that
that
is
is,
cast legend lore to Asgard?
Yeah.
down. That's it.
and that's where you got that. That was the right direction, but it may not be what you are looking for. That's why you got
where
that run.
is.
And he was talking about the when you found Sean's father, you found that little piece of parchment with that specific place marked as well.
Excellent. Cool.
And something about a paladin who was going to the Larrick Cathedral of Larrick.
Yes,
Adrian,
that's Gabriel, the
Gabriel,
one
yeah.
that Sean was reading.
Yeah.
After
that was
7 sessions.
that was that scroll that John found and was just like, right, I'll put this in my bag, we'll get out
Oh,
of here and
that's
we'll
right.
read it. And then we got out and I forgot about it completely. And it's
The
like,
scroll case.
yeah,
Yeah.
30
Maybe I should
sessions
do
later,
this.
it's like, hey, we should read this.
Yeah, random. Realize there's a plot point there going through. One thing that's always been going through, Tom, is the tattoos. The tattoos have always come through, and I think, do you use that to help direct some of the story sometimes? Is it, or do you have set points of where you're actually going to have it anyway, and the characters have moved the right direction? Is that like your continual plot pull this way? Not a railroad idea, but more of a, I need to get them to go this way now.
Well, so it's interesting. So I'm not sure if anyone's picked up on it yet, but every time the characters level up, their tattoos grow.
I did pick that up, but thanks for sharing.
And the tattoos themselves doesn't really do much, but it just links them together in a sense. And there was one point where all 4 had to be opening a door together, for instance, and
Yes.
such like that.
Yes.
And there has to be this amount of people, because if they die, it will find someone else who's worthy for whatever reason, or unworthy. I'm not quite sure with this group anymore.
Old man.
relevant, yeah.
So
This is the same tattoo parlor on a weekend.
yeah. So by itself, no, it's not something that's really affected much by the environment in that sense. People are looking for them and they know how to spot them, maybe. But the tattoo itself doesn't change based on what they really do. It just changes on when they become more experienced and more powerful. The map grows pretty much.
And then to the players, has the tattoo actually been tracked? It's been every time Tom brings it up. It's not often. It's only when you level up. It just comes in as a point. Is it something you're going, oh yeah, the tattoo, or is it, and you're concerned about it, or is it something you're just going, yeah, whatever, it's a tattoo?
So it's definitely from the character's perspective, I guess, at least for
Yeah.
Celeste, it's
Yeah.
very important that she tracks it. So anytime that it grows, she sketches out and tries to like put the pieces together, so that way if anything does happen, like they experienced with Tam where he died and the tattoo left, they at least still have that piece of the puzzle to stop the
Yeah.
apocalypse, or like whatever it is. So it is very front of mind with her in that sense of actually always knowing what it looks like and how it's growing, and kind of putting them together and then trying to piece it, because she's got scraps of parchment in her bag with each of their tattoos on it, like drawn on.
Yeah. Shirok, how's that going with John? What's John doing with his tattoo? What does he think? He said a lot of shit happened to him.
Yeah, Jean's a bit of an odd one.
His
because I
arms are a
think
bit-
he's- Yeah.
His arms have been removed, cut off, you know.
He's got a little bit going on each side. Yeah, I think Jean sort of has a bit of bizarre relationship with the tattoo, in that I think Jean is a little bit selfish without him realizing, in that when there's something going on that directly has to do with him, he becomes very focused on that, and he loses all focus on like the tattoos and other missions going on and all that. And he's very much like, this is what needs to be done because this is what's most important to me above all else. Like, he's very much the type of figure where he's like, you know what? If the world barely survives, as long as his family is alive, it doesn't matter, type thing. Like, so when the attention is drawn away and it starts focusing on others, Jean sort of can't help but constantly look down at the tattoo, I think. And so he becomes distracted with that side of the mission. Yeah, otherwise, like, so when he's focused on his personal shit, he doesn't even think about the tattoo. But as soon as it starts fading off to other people's things or just general things, then it's sort of like at the forefront. It's always just behind whatever is currently going on.
There was an interesting part of that actually when you went to the future. You wishes John visits his mom's grave.
Yep.
Because that's linked, kind of linked to what is about to happen if they don't fix it.
Yeah, yep. Which had him reevaluate a lot of shit.
Same for everyone, I think.
And how's Ingwe go with the tattoo? Because Ingwe's backstory is really onto stories and going through. Is the tattoo telling Ingwe's story? Is that the link you're having with it? There?
No, definitely the tattoo is the link to the group, because I think Ingwe really struggles with the individual, the morality of the other individuals. But so the morality that he holds his hat on is we're on this quest together. This is the core to our story. So all the other stuff on helping John out and he would have a sense of I'm not sure if I'm going to stick with John, but it's not like I'm not going to stick with John. It's I'm not going to stick with 3 generations, and even more extreme with the turtle, because it's am I going to do 7 generations of turtle? Probably not. But I'm going to stick. So he would be thinking, if Jean dies, will Derlin have the tattoo? What binds him to the group? His respect for the group is around that quest. So really the tattoos. It's more the story of the tattoo and the god, the door and the story rather than the physical tattoo itself. I think instant friends with the new party member, so that's cool to see the different Jean is just because he's got a tattoo doesn't mean we can trust him, whereas Ingwe's yeah, does.
Excellent. Doc has a tattoo going across part of our pirate night, so friends, it's all good. Got the tattoo just for you, and one on the face as well. Why not?
Yeah.
So that's a really good use there, Tom, of the tattoo coming through. It's it's a constant thread, because I first came in along when we had Tam, we had the tattoos and had to use them together to open the door, and that was quite an interesting time for me to look at it and go back in the story. And it's just filtered through, and different characters have actually got different points of view on the actual tattoos, which I think is really, really good way of binding them together. Really, really smart job there.
That's definitely made on purpose, so if anyone changes characters or dies, then the quest doesn't necessarily die with them.
Too soon. Yeah,
so.
Too soon. Yeah. Don't cry in chat there. Don't cry in chat. We know what's going to happen. All right. So that's that episode. That's the notes that you guys had for Frostbite. 56. This Father of All, is it?
Yep.
Father of All. Father of All. Lovely. All right. Father of All, tell me what happened here. What happened here? Ingwe, do you have notes? You want to take this one off, or you didn't?
I think that I might have missed most of this episode. Is this? Yeah,
is this one where you weren't there?
This is the one where I wasn't there, so I don't have any notes.
No
is
notes.
That right?
Not meant.
Because I have, and Solitude's the next one. Because I have.
Yes.
No, Man Overboard is the next one.
Man Overboard's the next one.
Ooh.
Well, I'm happy to take this one if you want, because I have near nothing for Man Overboard. So that
well, this is my last one. I've got no notes from this point forward.
Well, do you want to take it?
60, so I can do this one if you want.
Yeah.
Wonder why.
I wonder why. Yeah. Foreshadow.
It's a continuity.
All right, so episode 56, The Father of All, streamed on the 13th of the 2nd. We were attacked by a flying shark. Our ship took quite a lot of damage during that, and we tried to mend it as best we could so that we could make it to Itna without drowning. I can't remember if this is this episode or the last one where Jean was jumping into the water and trying to corral the shark, and it was this whole cowboy scene moment.
He was trying to lasso the shark, wasn't he?
Yep, and then Drekig was controlling the water and going up on a whale's blowhole almost, being like, what? That was a whole thing. Alright, then we had, my notes are really difficult to read, I've got terrible handwriting. Itna with frigates ×2 with longboats. There is a ravine large statues of angels guarding the docks that are 200 feet tall. So this must be as we're coming in to the docks at Hjalteland.
Yes.
I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Schalterland.
Hjalteland. So there's also a lane on the wooden docks that was full of crucified orcs, which was interesting. So they were just like strung up at the docks. There was the Belching Bear, which was a merchant ship, and the Bartholomew. And then there were, I don't know why I've got here, guards riding 6 white boomers. I'm assuming that's like the I think they were described as like white kangaroos or something they were riding.
Yeah, the best way to describe them was close to a kangaroo.
Yep. So I've got 6 white boomers here. We went to the Singing Fist, which was an inn. And then there was a golden shield and hammer above the door. Oh no, that must have been when we went to go see Jean's father-in-law. The golden shield and hammer above the door. We met Silver Eric. The serpent god guards the cave where the hammer is kept. There was a note there. And then my last notes of that section are kind of at the very end. So when they kind of went to bed, there was that whole moment with like Jean's dad, and they were like, "Oh, my wife can't bring her back now. We can't bring her back. She's dead." And like, "Oh, she's not actually dead." And then there was that whole like afterlife situation conversation. Jean and his father-in-law got into it. We were sent to the inn to await, I guess, escort so that we could go to the cave where we thought the hammer was because it was sacred land. And then we went back to the inn, had an early night. Celeste then went up to have a bath. She noticed a string of magic emanating from her chest out the window. So she quickly threw on some clothes, dropped everything, followed the thread, sent a message to the group, but 2 were asleep and Drekik was drunk as sin downstairs. And then she found her way to an old stone tower where she found the visage of Rin. Who looked to be utterly hurt and was asking her for help. She tried to heal him. She wasted very high-level spell slots trying to heal him. And then eventually Rin's visage dropped and he transformed into Helda, and she was knocked unconscious.
Yeah.
That was the end of that episode.
No wastage of high-level spell slots. It was just optimal usage and challenging from the DM to say, yes, how can we bleed the characters of these cool slots?
Yep.
It was actually also in character as well. You notice that's the whole thing. What I've noticed is you guys, we don't look at it as resource management as much as when you look at the play and you're looking and you're talking to people, it's resource management. But generally speaking, it's actually what would you do in this situation? And you would have cast the highest levels. And Celeste would have gone, heal this coming across. It's not a waste. It's literally, all right, so that's movement of people on my screen. That's all good. But that's what I noticed. That's the whole point. It's definitely not a waste, and that's what people need to think about is when they're playing. Definitely when they're playing and watching, it's never a waste. It's always what would I do in it? And if you're in that character and you've got the mood set by the DM, you just roll with it. You just go, I do this.
And I think that it's quite interesting from a player perspective versus a character perspective. Like as a player, I know that that's not the guy. Like I know that's that's something shit is about to happen. But as the character, she's very emotional in this instance and a very logical person usually. But in this sort of instance, it's just all emotion. It's just all what I'm seeing directly from me right now. I need to save this person. And so yeah, she just threw it at him.
Which I think was great. Yeah, it was definitely was great, and it was just exactly what it was like. And I think that's hats off to the DM to actually allow that trust to have that players to just do that. And then all you players are going. Player knowledge, character knowledge, completely different.
Yeah, I think that's very important. I think as a player of any kind of RP system, I think you have to be prepared to walk into a dark alley with someone if it seems like that was what you would do, even if your character would die because of you doing something stupid like that. But sometimes it's about living your character more than it is about being unstoppable.
Yep,
and it becomes a fantastic story.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant story that way as well. Like some of the crazy stuff that Ingwe's done and some of the crazy stuff that Drekik has done has just been, you're sitting there watching it going, no, and then you're watching it and enjoying it, going, "That is so funny. That is just." And I can see you see Tom, because I don't know if you guys get to see that when you're playing it, but you see Tom just smiling, going, "That's funny. That's hilarious. That's just I couldn't see this stuff."
I think you've also got to pick your moment when you play a chaotic. I mean, not that anyways chaotic by alignment stands, but to also just remember that, like, to be respectful of everyone and like pick your moments to do dumb stuff. And I think Daniel's really good at doing it too, where it's like I actually have, I mean, it's a bit like being a DM where you have like lots of spell props and the players choose one. I have lots of stupid ideas and I like only use half of them because you've got to be respectful of the other players. Well, you like if you want to play a dumb character.
A chaotic character, someone that just doesn't
I find as well, you kind of get into the conversation like metagaming a little bit of being like, oh, I know what's at the end of this dark alley that my GM's leading me down, or, I know what this monster's going to do, or kind of whatever it is. But I find a lot of the time character growth happens in failure, more than success. A lot of the time, and the story I find is so much more interesting when you have those flaws and you have that chaos and you have character deaths and you have to solve those problems. And I find honestly sometimes it can get a little bit boring if like you're always the hero and you always get it right and it's like there's no actual threat, there's no actual danger. Just lean into it, and it also comes down to trusting Tom and trusting Jacob and Shirok, and it just comes down to that trust that you have as a group of no matter what happens, we'll all be there to catch each other. At the end. That's really good.
So I'm assuming you guys have some serious lines and veils that you discussed, and giving the character, I know as a player myself, giving the character over to a DM to say, these are my lines, these are my veils, go with it. It feels, there's a lot of trust going across there. Like, it doesn't look like Tom's going to take any of your characters anywhere you don't want them to go, and vice versa, Tom, it looks like your players don't want to take your story where it's, they go to different areas and you have to adapt, understood, but they're not going to break it because they're in it together.
I think we had a lot of conversations about what people really want, because some of us have played together for years, and some of us haven't necessarily played as long. But we always had a conversation about what if there's anything that you don't want, if there's any phobias, anything like that, and then that's kind of playing into it, I think.
Yeah.
I also think one thing I learned from Tom is it's like sending messages outside of game, like when you build that trust by like through permission, like I will do and you might do something, and that's like be really, and like because actually Laura did this too, like she can often like have a go at you as a character that's like I'm playing an angry character, I'm gonna angry, and then just like do that message that's like, hey, just checking, like I wasn't angry at you, I was doing an angry thing, and she doesn't send me that message anymore. But we did, like when we first started playing together. And I'm really aware that like I did the same thing with Daniel, where it was like, I called him stupid in the game as a character. It was like, you're an idiot, you're so stupid. And then sent a follow-up message that was like, hey, just checking, do you, like, did that bother you personally when my character called your character stupid? Because it might have. And being open to hearing that answer. Yeah, I don't actually... Like, people call me stupid, like, I might have got the answer. It's important to ask those questions.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely that trust is super, super important. And the best way, I've answered a couple of questions on some chat channels and stuff beforehand. People saying, how do I deal with this as a DM? And my honest, fair suggestion, and I think I see, is directly. Are you okay with me doing that? And if you think you've done something in character is okay, but then again, following up, hey, that was in character. Are you okay with it if we do it again, or do you want me to step it back? I think that's a really, really good line, trust mechanism to go across with any players out there in any games. I found that's worth really well.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think having the ability to listen and to communicate is very important. A lot of people, they would just not go in a certain direction because they're too scared of it. And I think it's more important that you know exactly where everyone is on certain points, because then you can give that extra, especially if you play horror. That's where you can really get into some really creepy areas of D&D sometimes.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's some really challenging stuff. You want to freak Doc out, anyone who's DMing me at any time in the future? Clowns. Doc does not like clowns. No clowns, no images, never there. Hiding their face, get rid of them. Just
Yep.
no,
That's fair.
not an option. But again, to players out there, you need to actually make sure you share that with your other players and your crew and your DM as well. There's something that's really up there. Don't let it sit in you. You've got to get out there and share it out there.
Yeah, you have to say no.
Yeah, definitely say no. So that episode was a nice, fantastic ending where we actually then had a what can go wrong? Split the party. That's a lesson here for Celeste. Always when you leave the party, pick up my shit. Make sure you send that message. Not I'm going here. Pick up my shit. It's really, really
leave a
important
note.
because I know I was here and I also have chatted with a Napper as well, and we did say she didn't say that. No one said to pick up her shit. No one would have. But there's a lot of stuff in that bag. So
The entire party
really-
funds, like everything.
Yep. And so there was no metagaming. It came up later. So what happened the next time? Man Overboard. That's our next episode. Episode 57. Man Overboard.
We can skip this one.
We don't have to skip this one.
We don't have to talk about this one.
We don't have to talk about this one. We don't talk about Bruno. We don't talk about Tricky. Man Overboard. What's happening in Man Overboard? Who has notes on Man Overboard? Ingwe, I think this is a you one.
Not really. My notes are just a list of numbers. Because I think this was clearly this was like mostly a battle.
Yes.
It's all the hits you took.
So it's like, yeah, I think there's like managing like 40 creatures.
All the dogs, yeah.
Yeah, that's literally my like 57, 23, 12, 57, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 4, 4, 4, 4, 3, 4, 4. That's my notes.
Yep, that's definitely their hit points.
Yeah. So maybe to you, Tom, this is a challenging battle. We have summoned animals, you have your own stuff, you have the characters going through. How do you manage all that stuff? Yeah, you obviously have some notes going down. Well, tell about the story and then work out how we manage it.
Well, initiative order really helps with a lot of this, and putting as many things on the same initiative order as possible really helps. It was a little bit of a challenging one because there was a whole bunch of dogs, there was a whole bunch of pirates on both sides, and then there was 2 different captains and a first mate on one side, and then there was the players. So it was a little challenging, but I tried to just kind of like group them. That's the only really way to do it. And yeah, I think it was alright. I think the majority of it was they were locked into combat from the start. If they had been running around on an open field as all those dogs, that would have been a little bit more hard to maybe manage.
So it's more containing. Yeah, contains.
Yeah, they were in combat from the get-go, and they didn't have a lot of hit points, which was nice for me.
And this is something to new DMs out there you need to also be aware of. We talk about metagaming. DMs have got to not metagame as well because you know all the player characters totally 100%. What would the enemy do in that situation? Would they actually, I was challenged once, would an enemy player who, when people die, or an NPC, when they die, they just die, we don't roll death saving throws. Would they actually walk up and stab a PC who's rolling death saving throws? Would they know about that? And so we need to keep that in mind with all of these other animals and that as well. So it's a challenge for you guys.
Yeah, I try not to actually game master.
Oh look, Ingwe's done a fantastic job here. He's just Wildshake. I love it. Good job.
I try as the game master not to actually read what the player's spells are.
Yeah.
If I can avoid it. Unless it is a situation where I want them to really have a challenge. If it's a fight that comes out of nowhere, which is not really related to them, I don't really need to know what they can do. I'll just deal with it. However, if it's like someone specifically ambushing this specific party after having met them before, there's a good chance they're going to know a little bit about what they do. And then I'm going to try to anticipate that a little bit. But I'm trying to stay away from watching whatever abilities and such they have. So I'll get surprised too when they do something really cool.
Yeah, that's a cool part, I think, as a DM. Getting surprised when their player does something, you're going, whoa, that's okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then you just have to go with it once that happens and try not to limit it.
So, Shirok, what did you have? Do you have anything else in this? How are we going to end this? Is he there still? I've got him frozen.
I think he's phasing in and out of existence.
All right, let's keep on going, Tom. What's happening? A lot of summon creatures, a lot of pirates, both sides.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is like obviously we've got to deal with the death of Draken, and how we deal with that. That was pretty full on.
Yeah, it was a bit unlucky because the situation was he got hit with 3 hits and one of them was a critical hit, and there was no other enemies that this individual could attack. So he would have definitely tried to kill this person after trying to kill all the other people for so long and then keep getting healed, keep getting brought back, keep wild shaping into left and right things, keep summoning various different things. That was the trick that he had left, was just to
Stab him in. It was a tough call. Have you chatted with your players, Tom, about character death? What's going to happen? Have you got their permission for that to happen?
I don't think we have talked about permission in that sense, but I've definitely talked to my players many times where they said if anything happens like this, if in a situation, it's fine if you kill my character, just letting you know.
Yeah.
Also, I played with both Jacob and Laura for a long time, and I will murder their characters if I need to. And they know that. They know that very well. And
Ingwe was on 1 health just before
Yeah.
Draken died.
Yeah.
2 health, just before
Yeah. So I haven't had the conversation about is it okay I kill your character. I think we all kind of come to the understanding that it is okay, and that they understand that it's part of the story. Sometimes, even though it doesn't necessarily progress the story, it becomes part of the story. Like Drekig is now in everyone's memories forever. He has
And-
various different things that's happened that they will always remember.
And there is aftercare as well. So like after that
Definitely.
happens, there's a conversation that happens where you're checking like, hey, is everyone okay? Like there's that as well, which is really helpful. And I mean, I guess from a player perspective, I am 100% not happy that my character would die. Obviously, I don't know if you're ever in a situation where you want your character to die or you'll be happy about it. But as far as the game goes, I'm playing the game and it is a consequence to the game. It's just like playing the one who owns all. Sometimes you have to mortgage your house. Like it's just part of the rules, you know. So
I agree. Yeah. I also found that it adds that level of realism back to it as well. If there's that little level of risk where we're theatre of the mind, we're role playing, we're doing these characters, we invest a lot in them.
Yeah.
But the best stories that I've found over the years that I've read is when the unexpected happens, like a beloved character dies. It's like, what the heck? It makes it more realistic, not gritty, just realistic, that there's actually, you're playing for more than sheep stations in this pretend game that we loved all the time going through.
Yeah, I think it's important to also, as a game master, after this happens, to have a conversation with the player specifically, individually. I spent a lot of time making sure that Daniel was okay after we had the conversation, after I did that. And ideally, it was actually also his choice not to come back in the end.
That's the next part as well, because in the world of magic, we've got these spells that can bring people back. Have that next conversation. Do you think it's something that the character would want? And I remember watching the next chapter we're talking about. We're actually talking about what do you think Drekig would. We're actually talking about what do we think Drekig would want, rather than no, I want him to come back because I think we like the character. What would he want? I think that's a really good point. For those playing along, this is the time we're going to ask a tough question, Tom. Tom, we've had 2-player deaths, for want of a better term. We've had Tam the healer, and now we've had 4-player deaths. Sorry, going back earlier. And we've got Drekig the cleric. So, what do you hate about clerics? Why do you kill them, Tom? There's the challenge question. Why do you kill them? Because we know that no one is going to have a backup character as a cleric, because they're going to need a backup character. We've worked this out.
Well, I mean, it just makes it easier for me to make a challenging encounter when I can just throw through goblins and everyone. No, I don't hate it. I think it's I don't even know. I think with Tam it was a little different because obviously Adam had to leave, so we had to work that in, and then the tattoo became a problem actually, because the only way the tattoo in the system that I made for him would disappear is if he died, and then things could block him from having a comeback. But then I had to do that obviously, and Tam's still alive. He's still alive in the universe. He has just become a baker. He's probably gained a few more pounds, eaten a lot of cake, probably he's father of multiple women's children in the village that he is in. So that's a little bit of a different story. I didn't kill him, really. I did kill him and bring him back. But with Drekig, it was different. With Drekig is actually the first character that I have killed, I think, in combat, I think, ever. So I think that it was important to make sure that everyone was okay. And I think it was very important that everyone was on the same page. I don't have anything against healers specifically, but they are the ones who can change the combat in both ways. If the healer goes down, that can be a very, very bad thing. If the healer heals everyone, they can change the outcome in positive direction too. So they are kind of a tipping point in a lot of times. The druids are kind of the same when they have the wild shapes and polymorph and all that kind of thing. That they can really tip the scales of a battle that's going in the wrong direction. But I mean, if you have a dedicated healer, like I'm not saying that Drek was a dedicated healer, but he was definitely a healer, then there is situations where a battle will happen and the healer will get hit. In this case, it only came down to positioning, where people had positioned themselves. That was the only thing that made the difference. It could have been anyone at that point.
Yeah. Did it foreshadow itself a little bit? Like a couple of rounds beforehand, did you think, oh shit, this is going to go down this way? Did you have that moment?
So,
do I pull the dice or?
I think the tricky thing here is that I had laid an option. I laid a few options out for them to try to go after Celeste, but they didn't take any of them. Instead, they took the fishing boat and chased down 5 pirate ships. And that's not quite a logical decision, even with the use of magic. And I knew that was going to be very, very tough for them to win. So I had to be tough on them as well. And that's unfortunately what happened during that situation. And it's actually rather ironic, I'm going to say this, because spoiler for the people out there who's not watched Critical Role Season 2. So if you haven't watched that, just tune out for a second. I'll give you a few seconds. But in Critical Role, something similar technically happened where some of the cast members weren't there because of real life situations, and the reason that obviously Laura's character was kidnapped was for real life situation issues, and then a player ended up dying because of it. And that's actually almost dead on point, and that's interesting. How that's again, it shows how much a party combination really matters, and how much each character really matters.
It really matters. I do remember watching this episode when this happened, going, just not seeing it, going, what's going to happen? Then, as a DM myself, you have to actually go, what would the NPC do? Yeah, they're going to take out the healer because the healer's just bringing people back up. Yes, they're going to counteract that. They're not stupid. That's the bit that people forget. Bad guys aren't stupid.
Not necessarily.
They can have a skill. They can actually have a skill and understand stuff. Yeah, what would they do in this situation?
If it had been one of the normal crew members, I don't think they necessarily would have made that decision. They would have been too fussed.
Yeah.
But this individual, the first mate, is definitely not a very nice guy. So he would have taken no chances and taken care of business.
He's definitely not coming to our party. Next time we invite him around too.
Interesting.
He's not our favourite.
From a meta perspective, Ingwe stopped preparing Revivify once Drekik stored the spell Revivify and gave it to Celeste.
Yeah.
And so potentially, actually, even had I not missed the previous episode, I would have realized we were on a fishing boat. Like I didn't even I kind of came in as a person, like with my spells because I had missed the week before, and we did that role play where it was like, hang on a second, what's going on? Oh, we're in the middle of combat. What's going on? And that was like really good role play because I genuinely didn't know what was going on.
And that's actually quite interesting what you say there, because you actually had the capability of resurrecting Drekik at the time.
I hadn't prepared the spell.
No, but Drekik's amulet had it stored in it, but you didn't really know, any of you. And
Celeste had the amulet. Celeste had the amulet.
Celeste had the amulet.
Sorry,
because that was the plan. Like Drekik and me had talked about who would hold the amulet, and then Ingwe said to Drekik, "Oh, I'll still keep," and then did it, and then was like, "Oh, there's two. I'm not preparing that spell anymore."
Yeah, that's true. Well, it was just unfortunate. Yeah, I mean, it was a bad series of events. And if you hadn't gone down, if the players hadn't gone down this specific route of all the options that I had laid out at that specific time, then it may not have happened. But that's what happened. Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
sad.
So
but,
yeah,
yeah.
well played out, and I think it was again trust from the DM into the cast, and well done trust of the cast. So yeah, this is a story that would happen, and then they just played it and went on. All right. That cleaned up a bit of background noise. Yeah, good. All right, that was Man Overboard. 58.
Can we get
go, yes.
Shirok back on the stream?
Yes.
No?
He's on the stream.
Why,
Oh, I can
why
see,
would you
sorry.
need him? He's overboard.
I'm over.
No.
I'll pop him back in. Takes 2
I'm
seconds.
hoping all technical issues are gone. I don't know if chat can hear me or not, but
You can now.
I can't see you. Okay.
It's a little delayed.
Hello.
It takes a second.
Yeah. There we go. Back in chat. Hi, chat.
He just tuned out because he didn't want to talk about Drake.
I was too
No one
emotional.
talks about Drake. He was too
It
emotional.
had nothing to do with my internet.
Hmm.
No. All right. So the next episode, 58, coming in. What do we do in 58, guys? This is where my notes
Solitude.
go down and have list. Solitude. That's right. Yes.
So you
This is
managed
sad one. I was doing it.
to return to Shelterland with 5 hit points on your ship or something. And
Yeah.
a dead-
8,
and
thank
a-
you very much.
8. Okay,
8.
sorry.
And I was having a lot of chat in chat with Laura, who wasn't actually there. She was watching. We're just talking about, well, what's the sad things happening, and a lot of tears going on, and yeah, a lot of, which is fun chat. When we have a character dies, that we can actually type stuff up there and actually make a little bit light surgeon humor sort of idea, because otherwise we just cry when we're watching it.
Yeah. It's also
So
one of the
solitude.
reasons, again, that like in this episode, we had the big funeral thing for Drake. And that's also, I think that's also another important thing to do in correlation to a question earlier about character death and how to deal with it. So yeah, a massive funeral. You tried to talk to Drakic via a medium, and he decided that he was having fun where he was. So that's where the decision was made that he was not coming back. Up
There's
until that
actually
point, I thought he was.
Well, Drakic himself has spoken from the grave in chat. Honestly, I wanted to bring Drakic back, but knowing the whole culture and all that, it was putting himself in his character's shoes, and he had to let him go. So it's directly from Drakic, from the grave. Ooh, a bit spooky
Nope.
there, but what we're talking about, yeah. Know your characters, guys.
Yeah, no, that's definitely very fair. Up until this point, I think me and Daniel had talked about the character coming back or the options of coming back, but I think in the moment we kind of realized it didn't actually make that much sense necessarily. But it depends on how you twist and turn it. You could have gone both ways, but yeah, I mean, at least now he doesn't need glasses.
So Ingwe and John, you were in that quite a fair bit, and there was a lot of discussion between the characters of what we're going to do with Drakic. Had you chatted with him before, and what happens if you talked about character death between you guys as players, or you just went, we know these characters so well, we're just going to let it happen?
No, that's the hard part was that Narocto is a new player. Like that made it a little bit more complicated because it's all like just treating people as well. But even just from a story perspective, like we just finished kind of building that relationship with the character. So then, and the tattoos I think help with that because it's like, oh yeah, the tattoos. But then like you've got to go through all that like rekindling the relationship, and I suppose actually it hadn't, because if we'd had a conversation early enough, I realized on stream by reading the spells, like I'm a bit more of a newer player, that I could have bought Ingwe could have brought him back, but there was that spell that he changes, Revivify, that changes. It's a random chance about what species you come back as.
Reincarnation.
Yeah. And so I hadn't even like made that connection that was an option that would have taken away some of the reason why Norokto ended up deciding I've got to go, because if Ingwe could have just made the snap decision, he really wouldn't have cared about the religion of.
Hmm.
So made that realization too, was like, oh shoot, okay, well, actually Tom's already had this conversation, so even though my character would have just been like, stuff this, I'm gonna revive him, being like, oh, nah.
Yeah.
Yeah, from watching point of view, it actually played out really, really well. It looked like the characters had trust and you knew each other what was going on. And I think you really did that nice in depth. And I like Shirok. I'm not sure if you're there or you're frozen a little bit, but I like how John has that voice of reason in some cases. It's not a slow drawl. It's just, it feels that it's a very, very thoughtful process that comes in. And it sort of counteracts some of Drekik's and Ingwe's we won't say chaotic or quixotic, but sometimes some of their decisions are very boom, let's do this. And it's like Celeste comes in as mum going, what are you doing? How did you break my foot? Are you still jumping on the couch that you broke last week? No, this is a completely different couch.
Yeah, that's fair. That's very much how it's it.
It seems like John's really that voice of reason.
I definitely see it much like that, I think.
Okay, excellent. That's good.
Yeah.
He's a very wise old man.
I don't know if you can hear me now.
You sound like a robot a little bit.
Yeah. Yes and not. No. Yeah.
Just so people know that there's actually no player characters. Tom
I don't
is
know
controlling
why.
everyone. Tom is controlling everyone and everything. That's why we all look like pirates. It's just a robot setup.
I'm not a game master. I'm a ventriloquist.
Ventriloquist, that's right. Get your hand out of there. No, sorry.
All animatronics.
All right. So that was a really, really emotional episode, and I do agree that it was definitely worthwhile for us as audience, but also you guys to actually play through the funeral. It was actually quite good. It wasn't boring. It was really some of the most powerful moments I remember from Critical Role is when we've gone through those funerals and those sort of situations, and definitely in here, it makes Drekik's character far more powerful and remembering of what they did, and I think it's going to impact the players significantly as we go further. Okay, next, what did we get up to 59? This is the last one we're going to talk about because the next one we're not going to talk about.
So there was actually a few more things on the one we just had.
Yeah, what else? Sorry. Let's go. What else happened in Soldier? My bad. Let's go.
Because when they came back, they also met the council to try to talk about if they were allowed to bring Cerithia back.
That's right.
Yeah,
I've got
relatively good notes, I think, on that.
I also really love the moment with Jean and his father-in-law as well. I think that was a really pivotal moment in their relationship, and Jean's like the closure. Like, I'm not speaking on behalf of Shirok or Jean, but from a viewer, it seemed as though it was like a kind of real closure moment for him as well.
Yeah, you can go all the way back to the intro I had with Shirok, the very first pre-episode even, and you can see how much that has changed from that specific encounter. 5 seconds in, and then he's already getting yelled at. So that was a moment, I guess, that changed things a lot as well.
Yeah, you're back.
Oh my goodness, we can hear you now and see you.
All I had to do was change the internet source like 5 times. So it's all good. Technology. No, but I think, I absolutely think you're spot on, both of you, with that. Because John very much had a relationship with his stepfather or his father-in-law.
Just stop it there.
Much like you had a fair, yep.
You had a relationship with your stepfather.
Yep.
No, go on. It was just cutting out a little bit, so it felt like you were slowing down when you were speaking, so it stopped there.
Fair. Yeah. The phone and all that, so I don't even know if that's coming through. Hey, cool. I'll just be a background guy for a while.
You need to sacrifice more of those dice, Shirok, to the internet gods and get that going. Put
them in the furnace.
Put them in the furnace, or maybe we set up a new funding page. Shirok's internet. Let's go. Let's help him out, guys.
I think moving apart from Shirok's moment, we were given permission to go to the sacred site, and they were given permission to bring Cerithia back. which is important juxtaposition in the thing was because we didn't bring back Drekik, but then Sarithia really came and said, "I'm not dead." You could and convince the council, because otherwise that would potentially be really weird later on, where Jean's like, "Oh yeah, I'm really into my religion, and I've become a really powerful cleric for this religion that." Oh, hang on a second, said we weren't allowed to bring Drekik back.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a bit of a loophole there because she's technically not passed on. Which is interesting.
Because she's not in, which makes sense actually from the way that it was. It's like, don't bring them back because they're in the halls dancing with the gods. So it's unfair to then suck them out of the party back into the hellish world. Whereas if she's in a hellish world, we can bring her back so she can join the party.
Bring her back and then kill her for real this time. Just don't tell John that's the plan.
Oh, I was gonna bring her back and in a second, stab. Don't give me ideas, boys.
That's the only reason why you watch these recaps, isn't it, Thomas? So you get these ideas of, okay, episode 64. I know what happens now.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is that we did this originally also because sometimes people come up with weird theories about things that's going on, not knowing what's actually going on. And I'll be sitting there like, yeah, that's right. Yep, yeah, that's not right. Yep, that's right. I'll just be funny.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
And then sometimes if it's a better theory than your original plan, you're going, yeah, I thought of that the entire time.
I mean, it depends. I don't want to abuse it in that sense. But if there's some interesting twist that I didn't think of that could be good for the story, I would potentially keep that in mind. But I'm not trying to look for options. Yeah, I don't need that. I have way too many in my head. Yeah, and then
I have a question. Have a question in chat. Have a question in chat that we're just going to step ahead. It's come actually from, again, the voice of the grave. What were the cast or people's genuine thoughts when Watt showed up so quickly after Drekik?
I think
straight from Drekik. Yeah,
I think it was a couple of days though, right? So it was good, particularly because we didn't have Laura. That because it took a couple of days for the fishing boat to get back to the Isle of Itna, and we followed the shadow.
There's also 2 different episodes.
Yeah.
Because you ended up stealing a ship at the very end, and then the episode ended, and then you met Watt in the next episode. So you had some time, 2 half episodes really to kind of talk and deal before Watt showed up.
Okay.
I can't. Yeah, I can't speak on behalf of Celeste because she does not know that Drekik is dead. She doesn't know any of this.
That's going to be emotional.
Yeah. The whole time I've been watching these episodes, I'm just like, her emotion in my head. I was building it. Anyway, it's a whole other thing. You'll find out soon. But I just think it's so funny that on their way to complete the mission that killed one of their friends, they find someone else who is willing almost to drop everything and help them do the thing that they're wanting to do. And I find that the way that Daniel also ties in and kind of jumps in with that, and it's yes, 100%, I'm ready to jump back into the story, and kind of, I would find it difficult just from a person, a player perspective, to separate that coming in so quickly, and kind of put aside this one character and then come in not knowing anything and being this whole new person and not having any ties with these characters that you've spent all this time with, building these relationships with. So I also commend Daniel for that as well, being able to jump in so quickly with an entirely
I think he did, yeah.
To seem just what's going on, it's awesome.
Yeah, I think he did really well in that part, and also his point was to actually help move the story and not dwell in the past, and I think that was helpful because you did have the proper funeral. You did have a couple of the things that weren't just about that funeral, that actually did close that arc off, close that option, and then the next step actually did make sense. It's not oh, here's this random person who's walked past, let's throw him in. Wasn't that hard. It was literally, and Daniel did take it quite well. particularly with the introduction of his character, which is still one of my funny memories. You know, what is your name? Yes. It's
Yeah.
just-
Oh
So
yeah.
what? Anything else happened? Anything else happened in '58? We had the resurrection. We had the funeral. We had the John and his father-in-laws.
They stole a ship,
All a solar ship. That's right, solar ship.
and they met John Jack Joe.
Oh, John Jack Joe.
And Panther Tabaxi had a bracelet that was similar to the werewolf.
Yes, that too.
So potentially further, which I find interesting when we organised our crew, that Jacob was like, we shouldn't be organising it this way. This is a bad way to organise this.
Well,
so
Future.
yeah, I think it's going well. So 59, the last episode in our group that we're going to be talking about this evening. How did we go? This is when we finally meet a new character.
Yes.
How
Jason
did we go?
Watt.
Who's just what? Just an awesome character that just came across. I remember I had to go back and watch the beginning of the stream because I was at a meeting at the end of it. I'm flicking on and I'm going, oh, excellent! You know, Nocto's back. How great! What's his? What? He's a turtle. He's a turtle. What the? He's not. What? And then I'm going, what each time? And every time I'm saying it, he's talking back to me. It's like I'm actually having a conversation with him. It was actually quite funny. That name really hit twice. Good job, Nocto. It just hit multiple ways. I originally thought it was going to be boring, but it really is quite funny. So how do we take what? What are we thinking of what? Anyways, there. Celeste doesn't know anything about what, so we can only give you. You're a viewer like me. You're a viewer.
She's been benched.
I think, like I was saying earlier with the tattoo, I think the tattoo really helps. I think it's interesting the interplay with Jean as well, and I think that allowed Ingwe to even more be like, yeah, actually, I've got to look after this person because John is being irrationally skeptical of like the old wise turtle. I think that interplay is really cool to make that. I've only just kind of realized that we're going to have to redo Celeste, and probably the scenario is going to be really abrupt, where it's like, Ingwe, why do you trust this random turtle so much? Like, he's really trustworthy. Who the hell is he? Oh, because he's got a tattoo. I'm just anticipating that like dismissiveness of like time when you play around with the length of time and the lifestyle. Like that, the turtle is younger in chronological years than Ingwe, but presents as older is real crazy. And then the importance of Celeste too, like in some ways, Jean's it'd be interesting from a player perspective dying because in some ways, particularly now that the tattoos jumped twice, like. It's going to be really hard to value what as a player, as a character, which is probably quite dangerous too, because he could end up like, we've got to be a little bit careful of the human element because it'd suck to have to just like be that guy that's like, die, because really, Ingwe's already done the transition with John where it's like, oh yeah, I could kill John. Whereas Celeste...
I could kill John. Watch out for that when you're watching this back, Shiraka.
Well, because we had that conversation with them around the thing. And so then it's like, but then Celeste is a being that's older than and lives longer than Ingwe. So it really plays into that like racism that's not racism, but that race element of D&D, where it's like different creatures have different values, and you could probably, I imagine, a different character could do the opposite, where it's like we've actually got to really care for the turtle because their life is so short. And I've just been doing that like with my wife at home with the dog. It's like one day is like a week of their life. You've got to actually make sure you really value the week of their life. Like, let's do what they want to do because they'll be dead soon.
I saw a meme. I think maybe today, where it said when the elven husband pops out to do a quick errand, not realizing that 30 years is a long time for his human wife and child at home.
Yeah.
Right.
That
Yeah,
came in
true.
the lovely Amazon series that happened recently, the Rings of Power, when Elrond comes back and meets Duron. What's his name? Dwarf, the fourth. My brain's
Durin?
lost. Anyway, Durin. Durin's that. Yes, Durin meets Durin, and then he's gone. What? I only saw you like last week in my time. He was like, it's been 25 years. I'm married with 2 children, and you left me. Oh, and the elf just goes, oh, really? It seems like yesterday.
That's very true.
I think
that's just gonna
that's
happen
also
going through, yeah.
a conversation that Ingwe and Celeste have had as well, of being like, this is important for these guys to do now. Like you and I have so long, I mean not now because of Celeste figured out what's happening, but we have so long to do what we want to do. Like we have 250 years to go and find you your life partner and get your thing and get your scar, and I have 300 years to go and find a way home. But like this is what's pressing for these guys right now. We're in this, so like let's just do this. I find that's a really fun concept to play around with as well, of like priorities in terms of like who's going to die first, like who's it most important for, like in this decade.
True.
to get the thing completed.
Salvatore has explored that quite significantly with the Dritz Duerden series. From right back at the beginning, he's gone all the way through, and you've got a long-lived elf that's going over 200 or 300 years, and he has a relationship at some point with Canterbury the human, he knows he's going to die, and he starts going, lives his life in chunks. And he actually addresses that directly when Dritz meets his first elf, when he meets the first moon elves that are about to get ripped apart. Not spoilers for people who haven't read the books. And they say you've got to live your life in segments. If you don't live your life in segments and it's just one huge big story, then it's going to be sad. If you live it in segments and chapters, it becomes better. And that's, I think, that how the elves will get across. That's how Time Lords have got across for those people who want to know how we live it to 1,000 years old. We just live it in segments when we're meeting these people.
True. Also, realize something interesting. The tattoo has jumped twice. The same tattoo.
Yes, the
so
same tattoo.
Maybe it's the unlucky tattoo. The unlucky
well, I was thinking,
tattoo.
like maybe we have to sacrifice that person at the very end. Like maybe it's like it transfers 5 times, and then it's like, now you have to die. We have to sacrifice you to get through to the final gate.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Or maybe all the tattoos have to finally sacrifice the same number of times. So we're going to be a few character deaths. So I can see Shirok there. A few character deaths may be happening there. Which a question in chat. We have a question in chat that comes up. So if you what class or what sort of character have you guys thought about? We've got character deaths that are happening. Have you got a backup character? If not, have you got a backup concept of the character? Not to lead Tom into it. Have you got a backup to concept character? Let's start with. I know this. Okay, like myself, I've got 164 characters made on D&D Beyond, just sitting there ready to go at different levels going through. Ingwe, do you have any backup character ready to go? Because Ingwe's connected all the way through.
Not real. Not like I can see other people nodding. Like I have made a character that I don't actually think that I want to play. What I did was try and make a character as opposite as possible as Ingwe, and in fact, like in my write-up, that's the name of the character, the opposite of Ingwe.
So he's not going to have curly hair.
A bald dwarf barbarian,
Yeah, pretty much.
with rigid rules, with rigid rules, and never does anything wrong. That's right.
Stout halfling barbarian rogue. No backstory, no character development. But yeah, there we go.
Okay, it's a good idea coming through. Did you have that from the beginning, or is that just as you've developed through, Ingwe?
I think back to your earlier question. Have we had a direct conversation about character death? Probably. Yeah. I don't know when we had it, but at some. Actually, probably maybe one of these sessions where probably when Tam died. Was when Tam left. Like Tom messaged us and was like, maybe think about a character. I think the way that I write is quite reactive. So just as a creator. I'm almost deliberately not writing a character because I will write a character if it happens.
When it needs. Yeah, that's a good way of doing it. I agree in some cases. Same question to you, Shirok. Have you got a backup plan for Jean? Jean's come close. He's been dismembered. He's been cursed. He's had his family killed. He's got a wife in a test tube. Friends die.
No idea what you're talking about.
Sorry,
No,
2 seconds. I just need to add Shirok back in.
I
think
I
anyway.
died.
There we go. Now we
Just
can.
leave your character.
Before he drops out again. Quick,
There you
quick.
He's just gonna
All
come
right,
back as his
guys.
wife.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So here is a new character. Shirok is playing a new character called.
Yeah. Shirok 2.0. I have got a bunch of character ideas behind the window, so to speak. The trouble is deciding which one I want to use, because every day I'm just like, I want to play this one more than anything. Like, if Jean goes, this is the character I want to play more than anything. And then next week it's like, this guy I want to play. I want to play this one completely. I will say one thing that I find myself constantly drawn towards martial classes in some capacity, even when, like, I'll put it this way, of my backup characters, which I think I have like 6 now in the chamber, I think 4 of them are martial classes with no casting abilities whatsoever, and one of them is a martial class with casting abilities, and then there's one spellcaster. Like, the rest is all just mixed in there. However, in saying that, I do have another idea, which I'm not going to say anything about, which I think would be even cooler. But we'll just have to wait to see. If Jean dies, then we'll learn together what happens next.
There'll be another
Jean's that fantastic character who's the 500-year-old's axe with 3 new heads and 15 new handles. He's just assembled as bits going through.
Yep.
Is that really Jean? Yep, pretty sure it's him. Laura, you nodded vigorously with backup characters. I know you love creating characters going through.
I do. Oh, I have the character written. I have her accent down. I have the introduction that she will give to the party if it ever happens. I've spoken about it with, like, I have them fleshed out down to, like, their backstory, like, everything, and the tie into, like, the world, like, everything is ready to go. So if Celeste dies tomorrow, I'm like, same session. I'm like, hey, what's up? And I've even helped Tom out with, like, why she would be around. Like, it's I've got it down to, like, I've put it in. Yeah. So yes, 100%. I've got them ready.
That's the 3 complete extremes. We've got Ingwe over the side going, "Yep, I'll make it up as I go," and we've got Celeste going, "I've got the whole story written," and Shirok in the middle just going, "Yep, I got a few changes on the day. We're ready to go." Yeah, no, as you know, Laura, I've sent you a few characters for a thing we're coming up with, like, already, I think 6. A few others. I haven't chosen which one, and it depends on the day. I'm waiting for feedback on that one there. So what do we think of what? Let's start there. What do we think of what?
What?
What? Yeah. What? This is going to happen. We know this is going to be the introduction when Celeste meets what? It's going to happen the entire time, and we're going to be laughing. It's not a foreshadow. It's just going to happen. Yeah, you know his brother? Huh? Yeah. Anyway,
there it is. Canon.
Did you want another cannon? Sure.
Yeah, that's canon. I'm pretty sure it's canon. Huh? And why not? Yeah, why not? Is his sister? Yeah. What do you think of what, guys? What do we think of what? The description was just amazing.
I feel like, from a viewer's perspective, I cannot wait to see Jean and Watt's relationship blossom, because they got off to a flying start with Jean's, like, internal monologue and the conversations he was having with it. Like, I'm so keen to see how that plays out, because it was so funny. Of, like, let's throw the guy overboard. Like, get someone else. We'll kill him. He'll go to someone else quick.
Yes, kill him and the tattoo will transfer to someone else. I love that quote.
Yeah,
that
let's go
very,
with
very
Jimmy, John, Jack. Let's kill everyone on board until it jumps to that guy. Buff captain.
I mean, you can if you want.
I don't know if Norocto is going to be commenting on it. We can if we want. I'm not so sure he's going to be so happy with Joe Jack, or what do we call him? Joe Jack? Joe Jimmy? Joe, Jackie, Jack. I don't know. I've got the name written down somewhere. If you know what it is, if you have more names than dice, you know where we are. Yeah, we're back with
Bob, John, Jack. There we go.
Bob, John, Jack, So what do you think of what there anyway? What do you think of what?
Sorry, I just got distracted on reading the character that I wrote when we entered that, and realized the character, the opposite of Ingwe, still can speak to animals.
There you go.
In terms of responding to what, I think it's really hard to come in, and I think it's a really cool concept. Even just realizing that there's like Ingwe's realized that there's something there's something else. So I think that cool, like, particularly with Jean's reaction, being like, let's kill him, and like it makes it really easy to be like, hang on a second, if Jean doesn't see what's going on here, because usually Ingwe doesn't see usually Ingwe's like, I'm confused as to why there's stuff going on here, and because Jean's the confused one, it's like, okay, yeah, this is obviously some sort of complex thing. What a great puzzle! Like, what an amazing like shell to crack that we can like look inside and like find the hidden,
hidden turtle guts. Yeah, no, yes.
I suppose also that just sense of wisdom too. Like he presents as an old character too, so it's like, oh yeah, yeah.
Well, I think a lot of Jean's reaction came from the fact of what happened to Drakik. He's upset that this is Drakik's replacement, so to speak. He's like, when Tam left, at least Tam survived in the end, long term, and we got this really capable Dragonborn who, was like sturdily built, and they look tough, and they're clad in armor, and they're clearly ready for a fight. One of the first things we did was went and fought like a giant ship that / dragon surrounded by undead, and it's like, sweet, he's proven himself there. This instance, it was like, all right, who are you? And it's like, well, I like to eat the mold on the bread. I'm just like, we're dead. This is the end of all things. Sweet. So I think Jean lost hope in a sense, learning about him.
I saw that as a viewer, that it felt like Jean wasn't angry at was just angry at the situation and how we've got. And possibly how the gods are screwing around. No offense, said God Tom. That's how the gods, I think John's going, how did the gods screw around with this, and where did this come from? Like, seriously, is this the best you can do? Surely we can choose better. Yeah.
Well, you don't know what
the world rests on the shoulders of this old man.
You don't know what the parameters is for being the hero here. You don't know what the tattoos actually pick.
Yeah, that's why I think Jean's sort of gone to this place of like, well, if this guy can become a chosen one, what the fuck does it mean for us? Like, were we just picked out of the blue?
Yeah.
Are we actually like destined to save, or was it just literally like, hey, you? Yeah. So Jean is in like a mind.
And you can have a tattoo, and you can have a tattoo, and you can have a tattoo.
Actually,
Celeste back, deal with the what situation later.
Ingwe's thinking that too, except like he already has John, who knows nothing about magic. Like, what a waste of time this guy is. At least he can like blink.
Yep, that's fair.
Oh, and John still doesn't know that he can fireball too, because he went up and did the fireball.
He went up to the
and John went downstairs and didn't see the like. There's like
he
he's
purposefully
really powerful.
stood in the corner with his fingers in his ears, closing his
eyes.
I thought that was a really good. I thought it was a really good moment there again, where the player decided, it's not a resource. Dimension door upstairs, fireball. Did you see that? Do it again. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
and then dimension door back downstairs again.
And I love
some interesting things there.
I love with what as well, and Naraktos told us this. I can't remember if he said it on stream or if he said it in chat. But like the majority of what spells are transportation spells, like Misty Step and Dimension Door and Haste and like all of that. So funny. And again, with that same connotation of like, it's not a resource. It is a resource, but like for what it makes sense for this character who moves slower and is older. All his resources would just help him get around quicker.
Yeah.
So good.
Well, interestingly enough, also, he also was targeted by a spell in that last combat, which turned weird.
Episode 1 backstory stuff.
We haven't even gotten into episode 59 yet, have we? I think we're waiting for Shirok to
we come back on. We're about to go into episode.
To stop being a ribbit, as you would say.
So episode 59. Let's go into episode 59. What happened? Who's got good notes of episode 59? I mean, not Laura. She was paying attention in the stream. We were chatting and watching it. It was great.
Well, I've got notes on this. We're going through phases of 0 notes. So let's do me. Big battle captured one of the crew. There's a prisoner on the Bartholomew. 12 cannons, 2 harpoons, all the people on board. On his arm is a scar saying Naralasi. Captain Helder getting a message from someone, trying to come up from under the water to communicate with us. Going to Dragon to court for mutiny, then getting hung. It's a magical bone spear melted into one, and an amulet of eye, leathery. Oh yeah, this is just a list of resources. Fancy ring, water breathing. And then we organized ourselves into, took quite a while to organize ourselves into 2 crews. I think Tom a number of times said, you should probably only take 1 ship, and we were like,
no.
Oh, no. Yeah, you can do whatever you want there.
We will crash them into the reef.
Yeah. On shit.
Probably good to have to.
Just not ever. Yeah, we can do what we want. It's probably a smarter idea if you just, like the one captain that's been there before, rather than Ingwe trying to steer the ship through a reef. No.
Yeah.
That is that. Yeah. Have Ingwe driving, steering the ship, going, oh look.
Yeah, no, I think that was an interesting choice to pick both of the ships, but I did expect you to. Not saying that you need to, but that's whatever choice you had. You did sink the first one, so there's that.
I
But
don't
yeah,
know what hit points this one has left as well. What condition it's in.
it didn't really take any damage to the
More than 8.
the hull.
More than 8.
So I think you're on 400. I think.
Oh damn!
Yeah, it's a pretty big
That's a
ship.
pull.
Release the Kraken. That's right.
I think the first shipping boat had like 50. Like the fishing boat.
The
had,
fishing,
like,
the
50
fishing one
hit
had
points.
100, I think.
100, yeah.
Oh,
But
did
we
it?
left it. Yeah, but we finished up with it on 8.
Yeah, so you got attacked by the shark as well,
Oh, and these ones have cannons, so that's also a bonus.
Yeah.
and
As
harpoon.
opposed
this
to just
one-
like a whaling.
Mhm.
One of my more detailed things is just like, all right, what kind of setup we got here? Oh, 4 cannons, 3 chain shots, 2 explosive rounds. Now 20s hit the sails. Oh wait, no, that's that's the barrage ship. Yeah.
Yes.
And 2 deep sea charges plus infinite cannonballs.
Yes.
Love
Yeah.
it. So you listen. You obviously listen to the great movie quote. We're going to need a bigger boat. You've got a bigger boat.
Yep.
Well, technically, those 2 boats are actually similar size.
Hmm.
So now you have 2 similar-sized vessels, but you still have another 3 somewhere that are bigger than yours.
Because we're rocking the barrage and the belching bear, correct?
The Belching Bear went. Yeah, that's your original one that
Yep.
you took from
Yeah.
the docks. Yeah.
The one we just took.
Okay.
Barrage,
Yeah.
which now has Ingwe, 4 crew, and Jordan.
He was the captive.
Yep.
Split the party.
Yeah.
Split the party.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know.
And what got
That's gone well so well.
yeah. And what got hit with the banishment and did not go to a harmless demiplane, whatever that means.
Mm-hmm.
What did that mean, DM? What did that mean? We're asking the question. He's not going to answer. No problems, Jade.
I mean, the spell itself says that you go to a harmless demiplane unless you come from another plane. Then you go
Yes.
home.
Da, da, da,
I
da,
love
da, da, da.
how Narakto left his backstory quite open with
Oh, yeah.
Tom.
He doesn't
like,
know anything.
It was very like, here's my character, do what you want, like, so. And then I remember Tom wrote in chat with the the brief story that that Narakto had written, and then Tom replied to that and said, that's just what you remember, and like just like left it like as that. It was a really good moment of, and that's another coming back to like trust in the GM and trust in the game and trust in the group that you're playing with. It's like, here's the thing.
It is. The thing that reminded me of that was when Talos and Jaffe did set up Mollymock originally the first time for those people watching the Mighty Nine. His backstory was literally, I wake up in a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
That was his back. That's what he actually said, and allowed the DM just to take everything and any image he had would come up would just be that's a glimpse you hear. So I think it's a really, really good way of developing characters, but you've got to have trust in the TM, and the GM's got to have trust that the players are going to actually accept that and take it with it, and not just try to rile it going through. Okay, so what else happened? We had the battle, we had the ships you got split up the crew.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much
what we
it.
had. That's pretty much it.
The only other 2 details I have, which are silly details, but we played some dice, and Jean asked people to call him Iron Hand Phillips.
That's right.
He wanted a pirate name while on the thing because he thought it would help blend in better.
Yeah, Iron Hand Phillips, lovely, rather than Red Handed Jill. It's a much
Yep.
better name for John. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the episode after was really funny too, but you don't know anything about that, any of you, except for
That hasn't happened. That hasn't happened yet.
There's another episode? I don't know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, never heard it before. Question, Tom. Just in the last 10 episodes, is there something that any of the characters? Obviously, we have Drake's death. We have a new character come in. Is there something that any of the PCs, any of the quotes, or a memorable moment you've come up from the last 10 episodes that the PCs have just thrown out there that you've just gone, that is just gold?
I think there's been a lot of interesting moments. I think luring Sean to having a fist fight with a Loxodon was quite funny. I think that was just really funny. I think I didn't expect them to chase down 5 pirate ships with a fucking fishing boat. So that was a bit of an interesting moment. I think the majority of it has been travel, and there's been a lot of conversations about what to do and such like that. So I think that the majority of it has been cool moments by themselves, but not in the same sense as something like a player death. Like that's pretty deep.
All right. So I'll flip the question back to the players. So Ingmar, we'll start with you. Any NPCs interactions that have just come out and just gone, that's just special gold. Good job, DM.
No.
It's just a quite specific question. Hasn't been very heavy on the relationships in the last. It's been the image that sticks to mind is that image of sailing under the bridge, and the real sense of the history that's happened, and the way that you can describe that there's history happening without any history knowledge being, without it being a lore dump, being this is you can see how this is a really significant historical magical place that we're sailing under in this giant ship that's miles up, and then even flying as an eagle, just that visage that Tom has a way of describing scenes in a way that is very clear without using Tolkien crack on the grey, we don't need 2 book pages to actually get what the really cool image is.
I agree. You do a really basically the scenery and and that transition we spoke about earlier does become like an NPC, and I think I agree. I think that those things add to the level. It wasn't just a travel that happened. To me, as an audience member, it was actually about a journey that was going through where the characters did develop a lot better and a lot stronger bonds. And we can see why they're traveling together. It's not just a random tattoo. Yes, the individual characters are ideas. They're actually traveling to do something. And even they're now traveling to try to find Celeste. That's amazing. And we've got a new character that's thrown in. That becomes that driving goal because of the world. John, any NPCs do you think that stand out for?
There's
MVP
2 interactions in particular that stand out to me from the last 10 sessions or so. The first one, which I thought was really interesting to see, even though we only saw a brief element of it because it then got pushed on, but it drove from that initial instance over to another instance where we interacted, and that was Celeste when she was taken, the figure that took Celeste. That interaction that started there and then ended with us speaking through the sending stone, and then suddenly we get that other response, and which is like that. I remember in particular, I was already disliking the character so to speak, love the character, but disliking them in the sense of like, Jean is hating this individual for what's happening to Celeste, or I would. You get what I'm getting at. But when Jean had that interaction, it gave him reason for that, and I think that was really cool from that end. But from a one-on-one Jean to Tom, it's been the interactions with Torgia, especially because this is followed up from that initial pre-game sort of thing,
It's come a long way.
It threw Jean completely. Because one thing I was going to say earlier, funnily enough, when I started doing Robot, which directly relates to this, is like Jean was supposed to have a really good relationship with his father-in-law, to the point where it was almost like having an additional father. And so when he like met him in that bar, and the first thing that happened was he was like super pissed, fucking like yelling at him and being disrespectful to Sean. Like I was taken back, as was Sean, just like, holy shit, what is going on here? And so like to have that now somehow come to not quite a conclusion, but where it's sort of come to the point where I have an understanding, Jean has an understanding of why he's sort of gone that route, and all the stresses that he's been dealing with and the shit that's going on in his city and all that, and how it's all come down and culminated to basically the moment before we left now to go. From what I understand, I believe Silver Eric mentioned that the Belching Bear was Torgia's ship, I think. So just as things get sorted, it's like, all right, we're stealing his ship. Unknowingly until we're out in the middle of the sea. So yeah, that whole interaction on a whole has been really cool to see, even from the elements of other characters Tom's played, like Silver Eric, and seeing how he's sort of played into that relationship. Yeah, that's been one of my favorite parts of the last 10 episodes or so.
From the last 10 episodes, so this kind of again ties in with how Tom Bill, when I'm talking about the last, we're not talking about the last episode, outside of that. But ties in with the way that Tom builds the world, and I've also found a little bit of, I guess, grace from Shirok in allowing us to interact so heavily with his family. So I know that there was a moment, like when Derlin followed us to King's Helm, and there was that interaction with like Celeste giving him some weapons, to because she feels as though there's a responsibility in herself to protect Jean's family, because they've been so heavily involved with the story, and that little interaction was really good. And then when she went to go see Kiana before she left, and there was a conversation about the guy that Derlin had been wondering, like, had been talking to, was actually looking for her, and then there was that moment of like, oh my god, it's connected in that way back to Jean's family. And then this was in very brief and in passing, but it stuck with me when Celeste and Jean and Ingwe and Drekik all came to Itna and met with Torgia, and Celeste was kind of speaking out of turn a little bit, and then she kind of apologized to Jean later and said, look, I'm really sorry for stepping in. I just got really angry when he was saying all this stuff. And then Jean was like, no, it's fine. I consider you guys my family. And then that was like the end of the conversation, but it was just a moment of just like that connection of, because we spent so much time with Jean's family, and it's been such a heavy part of a lot of the story arc so far, that it's just that feeling of like unity in that, and then having that connection outside of our own story arcs that Tom's built in a way that we can then interact with each other's stories in a way, and then allow us as characters to also develop those relationships with people that may not necessarily be a part of our story. So I found that kind of thread has been really impactful.
Yeah, he's the only one who has any really grounding kind of sense. Like, every other character comes from somewhere else. And that's been a very important momentum in the story so far, it seems, with the direction that you have gone.
Yeah, so what I've seen from the game from the outside, I'm seeing that Ingwe's character is enjoying the scenery and the way the world's going, and that's how I actually see Ingwe exploring and seeing the world. Like, he doesn't quite get the interactions of all the people and those that are not quite as smart as him and going on. He's actually in the story and going the story and experiencing it and living it. And I think that actually comes across as well. And John's characters with that, as you just got nutted, Tom, when you're talking about, he's from the area. All his characters are there. All his family's there. He's interacted with it. And no matter how screwed up they are, they're his family. But he's actually not substituted, but found ways to expand his family and helping other people. And then I see Celeste going across with Celeste's backstory is like, this is your family now. John's family, you've adopted John's family. Is like, you can't fix yours at the moment. You can't get there. So this is what I can do. And this is what a family should do. And I think that I can see that those characters are really tied in. So really, really well done, Tom. If that was your aim, that's what it seems to have linked the characters. They've either developed that way or you've developed the world around these characters from what I can see from the outside.
I find it really beneficial as well because Celeste is innately a very selfish being, whether that's from her nature or from her family or whatever it is, the way that just how she is, a very selfish person. And then giving her that opportunity to see something outside of herself and to help someone else in a moment like that, and having the other players, lean into that and understand that, and it's been really, really great to play.
Yeah, I think it comes down to people's character choices more than it comes down to necessarily my planning. I think the way that I always like to give people from the very start in their character story some kind of obstacle, at least just one obstacle or something that they need to do, and then move on from there. And in this case, the selection of choices here just kind of fell into what it is now. And one comes from a different plane, one comes from somewhere unknown with a cool little tribe of cool people. And Sean was more of a farmer. He was more of a basic kind of individual before all this. And his family was very well described by Shirok himself. And then I just decided to elaborate on the value they had in the world as well. I'm not saying that the other characters' families don't have the same type of value, but so far, you've been on this plane of existence. You've been on this area where they have a home. Celeste obviously have a whole family at home, but her brother is also still interacting with her, unknowing what the family back home actually knows about what's happening.
Yeah.
And Ingwe technically still has connections, but also found out that maybe his mom isn't his mom. And his mom is caught somewhere else. And maybe that's why his stories don't quite make sense, he was told when he was a kid. But that also kind of comes down to the character choices. I just elaborate on small little things here and there, and then that becomes a whole world suddenly.
I think it's interesting too that you described John as an intelligent character and Ingwe as a not intelligent character, because it really shows like the situational intelligence, because John's character isn't very intelligent and Ingwe's character is very intelligent. So that situational, like, here we are in this place, and Dracket was similar. Before Dracket was similar in that, like, was a intelligent character that's unintelligent because of the situation. Really hard. I think that I'm really looking forward to see, I think, what is even further, like, will be a really intelligent character that's forgotten everything, and it speaks to that kind of humanness of what intelligence is, and that brashness of youth that's like, 19-year-olds know it all, and 40-year-olds know that they're not, they don't, kind of situational awareness. Once you realize that sense of, I'll face this problem, wow, anything could happen.
Yeah, I think that's very good. I think that's also an interesting concept, because if you look at it like this, Ingwe is really intelligent, but he's not necessarily wise, because he hasn't been out in this world. But where he comes from, he's wise about everything there. But Sean is really wise about where he is. And that's his kind of character thing. And that's intelligence versus wisdom in these two senses is actually quite interesting, I think.
I feel like it's a bit like the introduction of the AI too. Like, you're limited by your data sets. So, like, Ingwe might have the skill of wisdom, being able to bring things together and look at the big picture. But if you don't have the data sets, if you don't have the information, and so you can even do that, I think, as a DM, and you do it really well, is put our characters outside or inside a comfort zone scenario where it's like, oh, this character knows what's going on. So we build ourselves around one character or the other. I'm really looking forward to going to the Feywild with Celeste.
It will be interesting, I'll tell you
Me
that.
too. Something else I love about Tom is how I can just like say things and then it becomes canon. Or like I'll just like be having a conversation with him about, like, we get to like build the world together, like when it comes down to what, like, where your character is from, and like, our Feywild may not be what's, official.
Other people exist. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's
but-
definitely collaborate storytelling in that sense. When people make characters for the first time for a campaign, I don't know how other people do it, but I tend to find a place where everyone is from, and then that place just becomes more and more real the more the character kind of comes to life when the characters or the players are making up their characters and the connections with other NPCs and stuff like that, and then that just kind of helps flesh out parts of the world that didn't exist before.
Yeah,
so
I agree with that. There, I design my characters from, at the moment, I've been doing it from voice and then image and then class and then race automatically. I don't need to choose race; it just happens after I've got those concepts going through, and then I'll come across clearly similar like Ingwe does, and just name your father, and obviously like there's a name that just comes out of nowhere, and then I have to write that down to remember that becomes now canon, because a DM will bring it back and make it bite me in the butt at some point if I'm not careful. And I do like how you guys, it's just important how that becomes that. We throw away that becomes canon, but it should become canon because it's actually your story that you're telling. And Tom's not been allowed to be in your head. Probably be quite scary. I'm glad no one's allowed in my head. So we know he's not a ventriloquist mastermind animatronics, because getting inside he would cry. He would cry if he saw inside some of our heads. But it just allows us to have that sharing. I like maths. I'm really good. I like maths.
All right. Yeah.
All right. So where do we see our characters quickly? Last question. Where do we see our characters going in the next little bit? Okay, we know what's going to happen with Celeste a little bit. We don't want to foreshadow what's happening with Celeste. So Laura's 16 characters. We know they're ready. What do you think? Your characters right at this point in time. Where do they think they're going to be? What's their next goal? Okay, so what's their next actual goal? Not what's their purpose. What's their next goal? What do they think they're going to do? We can start with Celeste, because Celeste is in a fun place at the moment. So we'll maybe go from the character, from the watcher's point of view. Where up to this point, Celeste has just followed a magic thread. Where's Celeste going? What do you think?
We can mute our headphones anyway. If need be, just la.
I think that ultimately, as she was leaving that room, it was not her intention to obviously get kidnapped or anything, but I feel as though in that moment and why they were there in Itna, she is definitely now focused on getting the hammer, and figuring out what is happening in Itna and what they need to do to then progress to, because they had the vision of the future and what that looks like, and they had a timeline of how long they have until that happens, and I think that really solidified that in her head, especially with being able to contact her family, and she knew the wards were down at that point, because that's why she tried to send a message to them, and then hearing what had happened with her sister. And so now there's a new drive behind, like what Ingwain's was talking about with the whole, we have 300 years to do the thing. It's like, well, actually we have like 5 years to get all of this wrapped up and put a neat little bow around it, unless we want the world to end, or at least what we know of the world to come to an end. So I think the main driving force behind that is to, number one, get home, and number two, I mean, it's really difficult because and I think Ingwe might relate to this a little bit with Celeste, in terms of this world is not her world, and having that tie-in of, if I can get home, you guys are welcome to come with me, but there's also that matter of like, if my world is safe, it's my home, and I haven't been here that long in comparison, so there's also that. So having that tie-in as well of being like, this is actually what's going to happen, and we need to now stop that, because Jean's family's here and all these other connections that we've made and all of that. So
that sounds like true character growth going there. Yeah, we won't foreshadow anything. We know what happens, but we don't. Well, some of us know what might be happening, but not all of us.
Anyway,
Jean, what's happening? Where do you think Jean? What's Jean's main driver now? So Jean, we've done some wife arc, done some family arcs. We've done the werewolf arc. We've lost an arm. We're now a pirate captain.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I think Jean would see that as almost two questions, right? Like, where can he see himself, or where does he see himself and what is his drive.
Yeah.
His drive is very much just on the hammer now, I think, as well. It's gotten to that point where we finally settled down, looked at our goals, and been like, what are we doing? Hammer is priority. So even though in the back of his mind, his next biggest thing is still his wife, which I think worst case scenario, if it started showing signs that he wasn't able to do anything to bring his wife back, or it was getting dangerously close, he would probably abandon the hammer like mission, no dramas, leave everyone where they are, be like, love you guys, but I'm gone, type thing. However, in saying where does he see himself, Jean is convinced he will not make it through this. Jean is convinced he will die within the next couple months. Like, he is 100%. He's come to that. Like, things have been a bit wild the last little bit. His emotions have been all over the place. He's thought about it as a possibility and this and that. But as things start to narrow down, he's just gotten to the point where he goes, you know what? I'll probably will die, and I'm okay with that as long as I've done something with my life I can be proud of. And hopefully I can get my wife back for my son. And that's sort of the mindset that he's in ultimately. So, yeah.
Cool. And Ingwe, not last but not least, but we can ask the same question.
I just had that moment where I was like, and it was reassured because Laura gave a concise answer, and I was like, imagine coming to the next episode and like we've just taken too long, so Tom's like, Laura, you're dead, write a new character, and then like halfway through the next episode we're like, we're gonna get Celeste back, and then Tom's like, you meet a character, has a tattoo on its arm. Laura, start your character.
Have you been checking the streams? Have you been seeing what's going on in the future episodes? Like,
the funniest part about that is like I didn't even know Doc was going to be here tonight running the stream. Like I am that unaware. Like that's crazy in my. Like,
I could play the same game. We could play the same game every single Monday, and he would still show up and be excited.
But in terms of the actual question, I think it's really interesting that kind of sense of character development too, because it's interesting to see Celeste talk about being focused on the hammer now, because it's hard playing a character that's like so I come across as chaotic because I'm in a world that I don't care about, and I wrote my character as a lawful good character in a very structured society. So while there's some stuff around like I don't know who my mother is, like identity really plays into that, and that sense of like when Chirac says he's sure that John will die, Ingwe is also sure that John will die, and he's a bit sad about it. Like people, the people that are around him are dying, but doesn't have the sense. He still doesn't have the sense of having to stop the world, which I think is interesting. And I'm a bit surprised about it. Like the way I wrote the character was going to be like, I'm going to be the hero of the story, and the way it's played out is like much more like I think Ingwe's moved into that sense of being the librarian like character, which I'm surprised about.
Yeah, interesting. That's great. All right, I have no more questions.
Yeah.
These are all the questions that have come from the audience, and I did source a few others outside. So I have no more questions. What else do you guys want to talk about? What do you want, Tom? Tell your world. Let's ask for a new. So we want new people. So if you got any friends out there, tell them about Discord. Tell them about Monsters of Mayhem. Come along. I did in my one shot when I was there. I definitely plugged this of where I came from. Come and watch us coming through. We're in episode 59. We've just spoken about. It's if we look at one episode a week, that theoretically is a year, but we know we've been going for longer than a year because there's obviously times when we don't play. You guys have been playing for a long time. Somebody just joining the stream, where should they go to now? Should they start now? Should they go back? Should they just look at a couple of episodes? What do you think?
Watch the recap episodes.
Watch the recap.
I would definitely start with the introduction of each of the characters. They're shorter than normal episodes, so I would probably start there. And then you can kind of start wherever you want. And then if you get hooked, then probably start from the start. But start with seeing who the characters are, who they were when they started at least. In this case, we don't have necessarily a Or we do have an intro for everyone except for Watt at the moment.
What?
What? Who?
Oh,
No, what? Okay.
So we
Yeah, no, I do
definitely,
agree with that.
the
The intros are really important. I think that's really important, and you can actually see. Even go back and look at some of the earlier artwork concepts because I know that they've changed recently with some of the characters coming through. And having a look at those, you can see the character development coming through. And from when I first joined, one of my first episodes I watched before I went back was when you guys had the magic hut. You were chasing after the house with chicken legs, which just freaked me out totally, Baba Yaga style. And Celeste fell through. That was just crazy. And that was so long ago that even since then the characters have developed so much whilst you've maintained a true storyline, completely different. Like they would handle that now completely different, not only with better skill sets, but they would handle it. That story wouldn't have happened that way. That was just a fun character. Like, watch this. Okay. Whoa. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
They're
definitely
learned.
watch the Running Hut. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they've learned from the experiences for sure.
Yeah.
Just
And
a
I
few
definitely say
different
they've learned
tricks.
from I definitely agree back with what Laura said earlier. They definitely learned from their failures. There's been a significant number of successes, but also a large number of failures that I think has led to more character development. And from our watching point of view, much more pleasure. It's so much more fun. And I know I've seen a few dice fly over Laura's shoulders. And a few quite that have just disappeared. So, I'm not so sure. The new people that moved into that house when you moved, I'm sure they found a whole lot of D20s in different places. And they're going, what the heck are these things? Who do we return them to?
I do get very enthusiastic with my dice roll sometimes. I'm like, whoa!
Yeah.
Just send me your D4s, Laura, and you know what to do with them.
Stick them in your door so you can smash them to smithereens.
I know.
D4s, that's right, or caltrops, as we like to call them. They really hurt.
I think an interesting thing is to, when you talk about role playing, a concept that I think at least is very important is it doesn't really matter how you deal with success, but how you deal with failure. And that's an interesting concept, both for role play and also even for life. Like that shows you the true nature of a person, how they are when they do not win, not when they do win, because then you are excited and happy and everything gets taken over by this emotion of success. But when you're in a dark hole, sometimes that's a really valuable RP moment.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. Yeah, life is, I've got a nice, fantastic quote that I've sort of modified from my grandfather. Life is the messy bits between the milestones. And if you think about that, it really does bring in a character. Like you've all come back, what was your most memorable moments of a character? And you're going to come up with successes, but also you're going to come across, remember that time when we did this and John lost his arm? Like, how interesting was that part? Or remember Drekkie, remember the time when you guys were in the flying ship and you threw all those pamphlets out over the... and he decided to put them into a cannon and just blast them off into... like...
Lost your magical cape?
Yeah. These are sort of things. And that was a complete failure. Like, I remember the role was like, that failed and this is what happened. But that's a massive, memorable moment. Like, I do remember. Oh, yeah. And I don't think it was quotable. It was a very, very funny moment. I think it's really important we do link those things together.
Yeah, it's something I was going to say actually earlier as well when I was roguebotting, is I think the failure is such an important part of D&D for a character, that I actually have a homebrew rule that in my own games, you have to have at least one skill that has a negative modifier. So you roll for your dice whatever you want, you have to have at least one that's in the negative. Why? Because that's one skill your character's going to suck at, improve the chances of failure, and you're going to have to work around that. It's a built-in character flaw that has nothing to do with the roleplay aspect of it. But
I had a warlock cleric who was very, very super arrogant, had a wisdom of 8, and generally would roll a perception of single-digit numbers, usually 1 or 2, particularly when on watch. But the way we did it is like, you roll a I've got a -2 perception. Yep, as the spider attacks somebody, I've got a high initiative. I yell out, wake up! See, I'm amazing on watch. And all the players knew that my character sucked, but none of the characters knew my character sucked.
Yep.
And that was the fun part about it, because you had the terrible perception checks. Everyone got ambushed when I was sleeping, on watch, but really sleeping. But yeah, it became a great way of actually making that with that negative, and I think that's fun.
Yeah.
What did you roll? I rolled a 0.
Yeah, I think that's how I normally build my own characters. I always start with a flaw, like a really big flaw. One example is we played Curse of Strahd, and I was changing characters from one character to another because, well, I mean, technically she died, but yeah, it's a long story. And I started playing a warlock who pretended to be a bard, but I didn't have any skills whatsoever playing any musical instruments. And every time we had a fight, he would be throwing up because there were so many things going on in his head at any given time, because he was forced to pretend like he was someone else and was scared that everyone would find out all the time. And it just cripples your character, and like if you look at it from a massive perspective. But in real life, I had so much fun playing that character, just because everything was a failure every single time.
We had one character who did a similar thing, to the point that we chatted about it, and he would throw inspiration dice, and so whatever the characters rolled on their D6, D8, D10 didn't make a difference. I didn't actually say that was a success or failure. It just didn't count. So he's like going, inspiration here, inspiration there, and the character's going, yes, I've got inspiration as a bard. But in real gameplay, there was nothing at all. And it became when that got found out right at the end, it was a very funny moment, because that character flaw really sold. Everyone assumed that they were getting these inspirations and succeeding when they're actually doing it in their own way, which is great. Yeah, lesson of life.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of doing it.
The power was in you all along.
The power is in you.
Compels you.
The power. Let the power return. Captain Planet. That's an old day. Yeah.
Oh.
All right. As I said, I've got no more questions left. What else? Are we talking anymore? Are we chin wagging? Are we wrapping up? What's happening, guys?
Well, I mean, do anyone have any crazy theories that they think is about to happen?
Good question. But let's not ask the DM, because he has some crazy theories and he's not going to foreshadow things.
Tom, what's your theories? Come on, hit us.
Well, like I said before, one person mentioned something in passing that is definitely 100% correct.
Yep.
That's all I can say.
Let's just assume that everything we've said so far is correct.
Yeah.
Just base it off that.
I mean, there's been more than one time where something's been close enough, but there's definitely one thing that was mentioned as a joke that was definitely correct.
Go back and review.
That Ingwe is the big bad evil guy at the end that we're going to be facing at the end. I think I said that as a joke once.
I mean, that depends. It definitely depends on Ingwe's path. He does seem to be attracted to the darkness.
No, I'm still convinced that evil Furbolg is in some way related to Ingwe, like it's his brother or something. Like I'm still convinced that that's like there's a familial tie there, and maybe he was like born in the fire plane by his mother, and it was like a.
It's his future self. He time travels back. That's the concept. There's your concept. Sorry, Ingwe. There's your back character. Yeah. Spelled Ingwe. Have any of you spelled Ingwe backwards? Or pulled apart the anagram to see who it is and to see if it links to a character. Yeah, there's your theory.
Yeah, maybe like his mother was pregnant when she went to the fire plane and birthed like a half demon, half Furbolg druid thing, and it's like related to it.
Wow. Maybe.
Fire druid.
Yugini. That's right. Oh yeah, because there was the book. That
Yeah.
That was the code in the book, yeah.
Yep.
We're getting somewhere. Shirok, what theories have you got? Now, what has John got? What has Shirok got? Real theories.
I mean, we've mentioned a few theories through the different episodes and that. I definitely agree that I think this Furbolg is related, but I don't know if they're related to Ingwe per se. I think they're definitely related to the tribe. What we've learned to that, they're associated to Ingwe's home in some capacity, and I think that connection is going to be very interesting to see as it unfolds. Yeah, I don't know. I have a feeling that this is a theory that has only come up in the last 2 sessions or so, but based on the fact that Jean's father had something relating to the old church, and that we're now finding out about an old church and going to Itna, and we're going to go all this. I have a feeling that Jean's family is not only involved now in the Gratfort side of history, but I now have a feeling that something about Jean's history is now going to be relating to the Hammer. And yeah, we'll see if that theory fleshes out. But that's been an interesting thing from like, hey, like you said, here's just a farmer that had a bad thing go down, and now suddenly it's just like you are related to the Godhammer potentially. Like, oh, okay, cool.
Related
Hammer
to
is
the
your
Godhammer.
father.
Yeah.
The God Hammer's your
Uh,
father.
Am I
Okay.
really, what's it, an Aesima? Do I have celestial heritage or something? What's
Yeah,
going on?
you're now fighter barbarian.
Yeah.
Paladin.
ASMR warlock.
You had wings the
warlock,
whole time. You
warforged.
just didn't know.
Warforged.
Yeah. Didn't believe in it, so they never came.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's a sort of loose theory. It's not a super strong theory, but it's one of those where I'm like, I think over the next couple sessions we'll learn enough that maybe I can solidify something there with that. But yeah.
Cool. Evil Overlord Ingwe, Evil Overlord BBEG Ingwe that we're now calling. What is your theory? You're the DM, aren't you? Tom is a character, and you're the DM.
Secretly.
We've rocked it. He's the DM. That's the idea, guys.
He's the puppet master.
I think that's that. Like, I'm just reflecting on like my theory is that Celeste is dead, and the Laura has done an excellent job pretending to be alive this whole recap. Oh, I'm gonna be so upset when I realize that Strekik is dead.
So he's already chatting with
We'll
him.
find out eventually.
Yeah, you're fine.
The other thing that I'm blowing my mind about is like, how did we get on the fish? Like, I haven't watched that episode too. Like, Ingwe missed like when Tom's like, oh, there was a definite option to go after Celeste, and instead they chose to jump on a fishing boat and chase the pirates. Ingwe like came out. Like, Jacob was like, what? Why are we here? Where's Celeste? Why are we chasing the pirate ships on the fishing boat? Now that the pirate ships turned around, do you want to turn back? Like, did you not think like, what? Let's be whales and attack the ship.
I'll give you this little tidbit. Chirok is still unsure as what the hell the other options were. So, based on what was put out before, Chirok thought, fishing boat, that's about our only realistic option. And John sort of thought around that pathway as well. Was just like, guess we're getting on this fishing boat. We got to go back now. We need to go now. And so, yeah.
I can't wait for you guys to hear about or watch episode 60.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because she's there. I'll tell you that much. So she does have conversations with people, and the conversation they're like, my friends are doing this, and they're coming. My friend's father is a lord on the island. Just bring his army with him. And like, you get to go on a fishing boat.
Would you believe? They're not just two guys and a corpse on a fishing boat chasing a pirate ship. That's not what's happening. That's not
Just
what's
that
happening at all.
conversation. He's got
Actually,
an
that
army. He's a
reminds me.
lord.
Well,
With his
I
army.
mean, I'll say that for those who have watched the one shot I did with Tam a while back, where he couldn't make it, so we did something different. If anyone's seen how intense that one was, I'd say that Celeste is probably just as intense as this one.
I agree. Very tense. Yeah.
Yeah, for various different reasons, but yes, it's definitely worth a watch when you get there.
And the worst part is I'm reading it, watching it, typing away, and then, I get Laura popping on, this is recorded. I'm going, stop, don't spoil it. I want you to do this. Because as an audience member, when you start typing in, the reason why I type in is like, that's something that's funny. It's happening. Whether it's recorded, whether it's live, it's such a nice thing. It's like, just get a spontaneity, and I think it actually adds to that. Definitely adds to our community. So guys, get on and watch it. Have a look at it. It's so much fun. Interact. And just pop up some crazy stuff, because I know that you can see you can tell when it's live because they look down at the screen and they start laughing. At inappropriate moments, going, "Yep, that's not what I was thinking," but it's very funny.
Yeah,
very funny.
Yeah. Tom, where would you like to see the character? Where would you like to see the characters go? Where would you like to see them go? Just really quickly,
I'd like to
you've
see
said the
them
world.
go.
Where'd you like to see them go? Like, what sort of way? No
So-
plot spoilers.
So I'm obviously on the character sides in this case. Like, I would obviously love that Celeste would go to the Feywild and she would visit her family and they would have a cool interaction there. I'd love to see Sean bring back his wife and see whatever happens. If that's the case, maybe they'll go with a crusade to Gradwall and destroy whatever is of evil shit there. Who knows? And maybe Ingwe will find all those things he's looking for, and maybe rescue his so-called mom. I would love to see all those things happen, but
And
I
Space Crusade. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, what I mostly would like to see is just everyone has fun and they feel they can go in whatever direction they want, and we'll take it from there.
The characters or the players? Because I feel like the characters are not having fun right now. Players are having fun, but the characters.
The players, which direction the players want to go in. I don't think the characters are necessarily very happy now.
Yeah, look, it's definitely a inclusive community. Watching it from the outside, it's definitely fun watching and enjoying the experiences going through. You definitely have a lot of trust with each other, which a lot of player characters out there don't tend to do. It's not DM versus the players. You're all spending quality time doing it and driving the story forward. And we thank you as a community. It's actually a lot of fun to actually watch that and come across. And we definitely do appreciate the characters and the time you put into it, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we enjoy playing. We're just having fun. And, yeah. We're just having fun and playing together, and yeah, it just happens.
Decided to put it online.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, this is how a home game is as well. For those of us who are playing in a home game together, it's pretty much how it all started, just by doing this kind of weird shit, and then just.
There was a great interview today with Chris Pine saying that he believes that from America, but D&D should be put in the school curriculum. Which I think would be fantastic, guys. Get out there, try to get it into your schools, talk to young people into it. Definitely lines and veils, but it's a lot of fun. And if you're looking for games, pop onto our Discord. We really do have a lot of people that want to play games online, in person. There's a lot of places to check up. A lot of fun to do. This is just a great hobby. We actually love it going through. And
for sure.
Thank you so much as well for hosting tonight, Doc.
Yeah,
it's been great hearing your
Okay.
insights as well into the episodes, into the characters, and yeah, it's been really awesome. So
Yeah,
thank you very much
definitely.
for jumping on.
Really helped the flow of asking questions and such as well, and in between, and that was very nice. Thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah, thank
no
you.
worries, glad to help, guys. It was a fun experience from my perspective. Just a quick question: why are we pirates?
What do you mean?
I get get a nice text. So you're hosting tonight. Doc? Yeah. By the way, we're pirates. That's the context I get. By the way, we're pirates.
Have you not watched the past like 3-4 episodes? We're sailing on the
Of course I've
high
watched
You've been
seas.
pirates for
Of
the
course
last.
Of course I've watched episodes. I understand what's going on. It was just those guys. You've got to go with it. This is the whole concept of yes and. Definitely
And you
yes
went all out too.
Yeah.
Love your outfit.
This,
You got tattoos.
the
And
weird part is
everything.
this is just normal stuff I have at home.
It's like
Could
whenever
be,
we're playing with
guys.
Naracto, and he's always got a hat for like every occasion.
Yeah.
He just pulls them out of nowhere.
Doesn't even have to stand up; it just appears, just up from this
Yes.
side, from that side.
Yep.
Huzzah.
And we should also plug Tom's new business. Congratulations, Tom, starting a new business, 3D printing
Yay.
stuff, guys.
Oh,
If you need
3D
stuff,
printing.
definitely.
Oh,
Yeah.
Get some
Yeah,
insight into
definitely.
what the creations are starting to look like on the Discord.
Yes, that's true.
He's
It's
Yeah.
gonna
posted
be
some of his concepts.
very
and stuff.
unique and interesting concepts. Hopefully, everyone's
So
gonna
guys,
be.
support us through because 3D printing is a great fun way to go. As I said, your little guns you can get in paint, or bigger guns if you become fans. Great fun coming through. Daggers you can 3D print. A whole lot of miniatures. Like
Fireball markers.
Fireball markers.
Flame.
An up and coming, watching 10 days time, our up and coming
Oh, yes.
Lost Minds. We have one
So
of our
keen to
characters
watch that.
coming in.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. That's Elliot. He has a lot of fun there coming through.
It's very chaotic, but definitely look forward to it.
I'm looking forward to watching it.
Definitely chaotic.
What? Oh man.
I'm not sure it's chaotic. I'm not so sure it's chaotic. Shirok, you play a spellcaster in that one, and you have one of those frail moments of a spellcaster who sneezes and falls over dead. Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. No idea. Again, completely
Open the
oblivious.
door, sneezes and fall over. It was quite funny, but yeah.
I think
that's
it
what
was
happens.
just lightheadedness. That's all it was. Just a little lightheadedness.
It's all the dust. It's all the dust.
Woozy.
Can't
Yeah.
breathe with all the
Fetch
dust.
me my fainting couch.
Out of my bag of holding as a thinking. Anyway, guys, it's been a lot of pleasure. Thank you for allowing me to host. Thank you for allowing me to ask questions.
Thank you so much,
It's really-
Doc. Do we want to
really
roll
love it,
for roll out?
Yeah.
Roll for raid?
Yeah.
Let's roll for
Roll
raid.
Roll for raid.
Oh, right.
You got a D20 there, Doc?
I do have a D20.
I would be disappointed if you said no.
Hang on. I have my bag of dice. That wasn't
It's for me.
D20. We have an 8.
I got a 12.
I got a 6.
Look at that.
It's like it's you, Tom.
It's you, Tom.
It's the power of the DM.
Well, now that you're makes sense now that you're not hosting the stream for once.
Yeah.
I think I got like 2 of these or something like that in total.
It just shows how well these things go when 12 is the highest.
Yeah, well, it's
never
better than
been
like
less.
5 natural 20s in combat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
Save for the raid.
2 natural 20s comes up in a campaign. 2 natural 20s in literally 1 round, second round. Thanks for coming. DM just goes, oh, that's not good. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
I rolled. What was it? I think it was last combat. I rolled with advantage, and both of them was natural 20s.
Yeah.
I remember
terrifying.
that.
I have a photo of
Vaguely.
disadvantage 2 natural 20s. I have one photo of disadvantage live game 2 natural 20s. It was amazing from a character point of view, but I was DM at the time, so it wasn't so amazing from a player character's point of view because it did lead to a death and a 2 failed saving throws. So
Yeah, damn.
Yes.
Oh well.
Very small side note based on that thing. First attack roll I ever made on a player as a DM ever was a nat 20 that nearly insta-killed them.
Yeah.
I
Is this
actually
a
would be
low
like
level, like-
low level. Yeah.
Yep, it was level 1
Yeah.
and I was like, bite
Yeah.
attack, natural 20 damage. Oh my gosh.
Oh, 20 damage. Dripping was
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
worse.
I stabbed you with
Hit
my
points.
knife. Oh, it's a 4. Oh, critical hit. Oh, ooh, wow.
Yep.
I'm very grateful to say
These
to our
goblins
first
are
character,
powerful.
most famous character death, a wizard in the old first edition where we had D4 hit points and a constitution bonus, but no one had constitution as wizard because you're trying to bump up intelligence, you get the bonus spells. Dexterity or reflex saving at the time failed, tripped down the stairs, there was no railing. Tripped down the stairs, so literally walked in, this is my new character, walked in, tripped, fell off a railing and died. Like fell 10 feet.
Oh no.
Eighth,
What a way to go.
8th level wizard.
Oh,
Just
No
was
wonder
like,
ancient wizards are so revered.
yeah.
Oh no,
Oh.
Melanie. Oh well.
That's why what is
Yeah.
so wide and weird.
Yeah.
I'm the eldest turtle I know, eldest wizard.
Yeah, he's in
Because I
danger.
stayed inside in a cave my whole life.
All right, should I run down some options?
Yes.
Okay, so we have I can't tell if it's AKA Kamushi or if it's Akakamushi, but they are doing Chaos Begins Anew. So it sounds like the beginning of a new adventure.
Oh,
There is Tharizdun the Mad Spiral God, who are doing Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel. We also have Shield of Celestia, who is doing a rerun. Never mind. There is this Monsters and Mayhem group, but I would advise against them.
this sucks.
Yeah.
Especially the game master, he sucks.
Shadows Nexus, which seems to be an Aussie group doing Ghosts of the Salt Marsh. There is there's quite a few actually tonight. There's Gruntar TV, who's also doing a rerun. Never mind, they're doing live reruns. So
I think the first one probably because that was a new one, right?
yeah, Chaos Begins Anew.
A nice way
Because
to.
we're finishing about an hour earlier tonight, so there are so many options.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to stream at the same time as us, but quite earlier. Or maybe it's just because they're in different time zones.
Who knows?
Could be
Either way,
different
we come to
time
our
zones,
own
could be different
conclusions.
Yeah.
They're quitters. That's what it is. Quitters.
They're quitters, man. They're quitters.
Let's raid Kombucha or whatever they're called.
Yep. AKA Kamushi.
Kamushi.
Akakamushi.
I don't know what a Kamushi is, but
Is it like
I don't know what it
I
is.
promotion?
like it.
It's like promotion.
The worst part is that you don't know what a kamushi is, but you don't know what it's also known as. That's right.
yeah. Also known as Kamushi. I think
What
I
I said in the first
last,
place.
last time I went to the club, someone offered me a kabushi, and I was very confused.
No, it's not called Kamushi. That's not called a Kamushi. Yes.
I cannot seem to Google what that means. So
Never Google
That's
anything
the
that we
song.
say on this show.
no.
We can ask.
Don't
We'll see if
Google.
they interact with the chat. We could always ask.
Also remember, it's not an orgy.
Yes. God.
But yeah, Monsters and Mayhem in chat, folks.
Yep.
Right now, 5, 4, 3.
Thanks, everyone.
One.
Good night. Bye.
Yeah. We're through.